Okay, everybody, welcome. We're going to start the meeting. We're a little bit late, but we're ready to go. This is the September 8th, 2022 Town of Fishkill Planning Board meeting, and I'd like to call the meeting to order at 7:05 p.m. And if everybody would please stand, we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. So a couple of the normal, usual announcements. One is just to remind you to silence your cell phones during the meeting, and the other is to speak clearly into the microphone so everybody can hear well. We have one absence and one member, I believe. Our alternate, B.J. Gopal, is going to be here. I was going to appoint him as a voting member, but I really shouldn't do that until he arrives. So we'll see how that goes. Otherwise, we do have more than a quorum. One thing before we get going.
Excuse me, John. I did get an email from VJ that something came up. He will not be able to join us this evening.
Okay, so that's a new thing. Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right. So we do have 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 6 voting members tonight, and at least one point we will be down to 5 because I'll be recusing myself from one of the items. But before we get to the agenda, I wanted to ask the board, we do have other business scheduled for tonight's meeting, and I would like to ask the board to add an item under other business to consider amending one of the conditions of approval in the Healy Hyundai resolution of preliminary and final approval. So that would be at the end of the meeting. Would someone like to make a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second. Fred moved it. Felix seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That passes 6-0. And we did pass out some material for that. I had sent it before the meeting by email. I don't know, it was pretty late in the day, so I don't know if people have had a chance to look at it, but we'll go through that when we get to that point. All right, the first full item on the agenda is approval of minutes. Board to approve and adopt the July 14, 2022 and August 11, 2022 Planning Board meeting minutes. So let's do them separately, starting with the July 14th. Do members have any comments or corrections on the July 14th draft minutes?
No.
All right, if not, would someone like to make a motion to approve and adopt the minutes of the July 14th, 2022 meeting?
So moved.
Felix moves it. Is there a second?
Second.
Bob seconds it. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? That passes. Any comments or corrections on the August 11th minutes?
No.
All right, would someone please make a motion to approve and adopt the minutes of the August 11th, 2022 meeting?
So moved. I'll second.
I think, was that, who was?
It was a tie. Bob. Give it to Bob, I'll
All right.
second it.
Bob moves it. There was
It was a
like an
tie.
echo going back.
It was a tie.
And Bob moves it. Anthony seconds it. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That passes 6-0. Thank you very much. So we have one public hearing tonight. That's for the Johnson Trails 5-lot subdivision, and I'll read the hearing notice. At 7 p.m. or as soon thereafter as possible, applicant seeks approval to subdivide a 7.2-acre parcel into 5 lots. Lot 1 consisting of 1.77 plus or minus acres, Lot 2 1.19 plus or minus acres, Lot 3 1.16 plus or minus acres, Lot 4 1.32 plus or minus acres, and Lot 5 1.04 plus or minus acres. All lots will be served by individual wells and septic. A road will be constructed through the existing adjacent parcel, identified as, I would just give you the parcel number, the last 6 digits, 131668, allowing access to Mountain View Road. The parcel for this proposal is in the R40 zoning district, identified as tax map parcel, again, the parcel number 157688, and it's located on Route 82, adjacent to Mountain View Road and Penny Place. This is actually a continuation of the public hearing that was opened by the Planning Board at their July 14, 2022 meeting and continued at the August 11th meeting. So being a continuation, we do not need a motion to continue the public hearing. Now, the applicant has submitted responses to previous public hearing comments and has also provided the board with a summary report dated August 23rd, 2022. I'm hoping a representative of the applicant is here tonight, because what I would like you to do before we take comments is to very briefly go through the applicant's responses to the public hearing comments that you submitted, which also includes that traffic summary report. So again, very brief for now, because we will be discussing this further, but just so the audience is familiar with what has been submitted, if you could do that now, that would be appreciated.
Good evening. My name is Karen Hagstrom. I'm with Stanger Diamond and Glass. Here I'm working with Al Roberts, and he is away, so I'm filling in for him this evening on behalf of the applicant. My main request tonight is going to be requesting respectfully that the board close the public hearing. This is the 3rd evening it's been on for a public hearing. I believe it was adjourned the last time for the letter from the DOT, which has now been received, and I see in your engineer's comment letter that he has commented that the history and reasoning behind the DOT denying the driveway access through Route 82 makes sense, and that the Mountain View Road is the preferred alternative is clear. So I think that's something that has been clarified since the last meeting. The developer is complying with the zoning and subdivision regulations, so they're entitled to subdivision approval. And the wells were going into a different aquifer. We can let the engineer will be coming up and speaking to you next about the details. They're going 150 feet deeper, I believe it is, than the other wells. The other thing I wanted to just make a brief comment about was I see in the engineer's comments about the maintenance agreement for the Hammerhead turnaround. And they're calling it a turnaround easement. It's actually a dedication, so it's going to be a dedication to the town, so the town would be maintaining it, is my understanding. So I'll let your attorney obviously discuss that with the board, but I just wanted to raise that issue. It's my understanding that the town highway superintendent requested that, so that for snow removal, and that it's a benefit to the town and would be dedicated to the town and they would maintain it. That's my understanding. So with that being said, I will turn it over to our engineer. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening, good evening. So as mentioned, this is our 3rd night of actually having an adjourn or have a public hearing open. The plan itself, in terms of layout, lot count, so forth, really hasn't changed much over the last 2 or 3 months. It's the same layout as proposed. And I guess one thing to remind certainly the board of, and maybe some folks in the audience, is that we have a piece of property now that has 2 access points. One is on 82, and the other is on Penny Place. Okay, so we all have the letter, I assume, at this point of August 10th from the DOT, absolutely denying access to Route 82 for a number of reasons stated in that particular letter. So that would ultimately leave the only access to this property on Penny Place, okay, which in terms of the traffic from the subdivision, the 5 lots and maybe 3 cars a day, 4 cars a day, there would be a much longer way to get out of this subdivision out to 82. So in fact, when we had the opportunity to have the piece next door be able to dedicate a piece of property for the road access, this is probably the best of all alternatives. Again, keeping in mind that the DOT denied that access to 82. So we believe that this is the layout that works best relative to the parcel, relative to the people in the community that would be least affected by this access point. So traffic, not to go through every single comment, but really it was an issue of traffic and access that we heard a lot from the public on, and the other one was an issue of wells. And as understood, many of these wells in the area are actually shallow wells, point wells. As part of obtaining the approval from the health department, we're required to drop 2 test wells. Test wells have to be bedrock-driven wells, much further down than any kind of a point or shallow well that would be out there. So we're really tapping into a different area than would be, the high groundwater table that exists, in the general vicinity. Tested for quality and quantity. We have discussed this with one of the property owners in terms of minding that well while we do that work in terms of pumping and making sure that, there's no negative effect on that. But again, we did that certainly as a courtesy very early on in terms of informing of that. So we will hold to our word relative to that. But again, because these are in 2 different locations, one being not so far down and one being deep driven, we don't believe there's going to be any kind of effect. Just to get back quickly to the traffic, the access is what it is. I went the next step and actually took a look at the intersection of 82 and Mountain View because there was a lot of comment about the fact that there's too much traffic there, and traffic is actually based upon determining the level of service of that intersection, and I'm sure you've dealt with that before. It's an A or it's an F and everything in between. Certainly the traffic that was out there didn't mandate, an F type of intersection that I've ever been involved with. We provided some additional information on the geometrics of that lot. The issue that seems to be there is that across the street, there's a plaza, and there's no defined entrance in or out. So you have basically a wide expanse of pavement where people can maybe move around. There is a telephone pole directly across the street a little further to the south, and which may at times become precarious, but that's an issue with that intersection. That's an issue with really the other side of the road, okay? So I think I stated that in my traffic summary that I submitted as part of the application. So
I think, if I'm not mistaken, you also included some photographs of some of that.
we did. Yeah, it was included in the report. So those were the 2 main issues that were brought up continuously by the public. I did receive some additional emails today relative to people writing in, and again, they fell along the lines of, the issue of the access. So.
Okay, thank you. That was a good overview. Why don't we get to the public comments, and then again, we will be continuing project review later on in the agenda. So what I'm going to do first is see if you could give me a show of hands of those who want to speak at the hearing tonight. Okay, I see a few. All right, I see some hands there. So I'm going to go ahead and read our rules of conduct for public hearings, which you've heard twice before now, but I will repeat them. Speakers are asked to come to the podium and identify themselves so that their name may be entered into the record. Speakers are limited to 1 turn at the microphone and are limited to no more than 4 minutes. There will be a warning when there is 1 minute left. Speakers should provide only new or different information or commentary. Repetitive comments made previously or at prior meetings are prohibited. And I'm going to try to make sure that that doesn't happen tonight because, as we've heard, this is now the 3rd night that we're allowing public comments. Speakers are encouraged to submit their comments in writing. You can do that after the meeting and submit them to the planning department. So if you have more detailed comments, you don't have to say them all here tonight, but they'll still be entered into the record. Comments are limited to matters involving the business before the board, that is, the particular application under review tonight. Verbal interruptions, shouting, or other outbursts, as well as slanderous or obscene language or making signs with body or face are prohibited. No speaker shall make any personal attacks on anyone. And finally, if a person interrupts or continues to interrupt the chair, after the chair has asked them to stop, they'll be asked to leave and escorted from the meeting room if necessary. That has not happened, from what I understand, in many years, but we have to state that anyway because it has happened in the past. So, let's start with the public comments. Again, please raise your hand. Why don't we start on this side and come on up and let us know what your comments are. And again, please, when you come to the podium, give us your name and address.
Is somebody keeping?
Yep.
Okay.
Hi, good evening. My name's Janine Kraus, resident in that community for about 27 years. My question this evening just came up because I'm sorry I didn't get your name, but the woman who spoke first, she's talking about a portion of the road that's being dedicated back to the town. And actually, one of the other residents brought this up in the last meeting and was told that it really doesn't belong to planning, but since this was addressed tonight, it does. You guys are inheriting a new road if they go through the section that they have proposed. Well, the other resident brought up last time that this neighborhood has not been paved in over 25 years, and I can attest to that since I've lived there. So now you're going to take on another road that you're duly responsible for. And by the way, construction may go on. We don't know how long. I can tell you we've watched a parcel that they can't seem to sell off the houses or the lots to build houses. But you're about to acquire yet another piece that you're responsible to take care of, and yet the roads have not been taken care of for over 20 years. I'm not sure that that flies well. That's all I have to say this evening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, is there anyone else on this side of the room first before we go to that side?
I don't see him.
No? All right. Why don't you come on up, sir?
Good evening. Pedro Ramos, 54 Cherry Lane. I'm not sure, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was stated that the issue in regards to traffic was the other side, which I believe where the gentleman was referring to the plaza. I'm not sure what time he was driving, but every time I drive, I come from New York City, I work in New York City, I have to slow down way before getting into Mountain View Road. A lot of tailgaters, and they don't listen to signals. This is just, how it is. There's many times that I've come close to someone behind me almost hitting me. And you have to make that turn, you have to make that right turn very quickly. It's not safe. It really isn't safe. Also, I was just talking to a neighbor here as well who saw me trying to teach my daughter how to ride a bike. Adding this traffic is just going to stop that completely. I'm afraid for her safety, I'm afraid for my safety, I'm afraid for my neighbor's safety. It's something that, definitely needs to be thought through and reconsidered. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, sir, way in the back in the blue shirt. Hi, welcome.
Hi, how are you? Alan Wooten, 44 Mountain View. Three different things I want to talk about. One is it was stated tonight that the depth of the new wells really will not have any impact on the existing wells. That is not true. The only impact it will have is his will run dry. Ours will run dry before his does. So that's the impact on ours. Ours is shallower. Of course, ours will run dry before they do. The second thing is if there was only one house being built on this property, there would be access off of Highway 82. Only one house, that's it. But now we're putting 5, so they're saying that the access is not allowed on 82. The other thing is my home is directly in front of where this road is going. It's going to adversely affect my quality of life for my family, my 2 young children who have front-facing bedrooms to where all that traffic, all those lights, everything that's going to be coming in to our house at night from this traffic. You're adding 10, 15 different cars to this neighborhood. And the other thing is I had my family from the Bronx up this past weekend, Labor Day weekend. We were pulling out to go out to lunch on Monday, and at that same time, we were backing out. 2 other cars in the neighborhood were backing out at the same time. This is just going to cause mass confusion. We're no longer going to be able to back out of our yard, which is, again, is going to adversely affect our quality of life. I think this is a huge bad idea to put that road in front of my house. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I know I had seen a couple of hands additionally. Yes, ma'am, why don't you come up?
Good evening. My name is Constance Wynett, and my husband and I have lived on Cherry Lane for 25 years, and we love our neighborhood. The Johnson Trails development has brought our neighborhood together, if anything. It has made us realize how much we have in common with each other and what we want for our families. There are many things we agree on. A few of those items are as follows. We know that adding a new road into our existing neighborhood will negatively impact us. This is not a road that only affects 3 houses, as stated by the development spokesperson at the last meeting. It touches on all 80-plus houses in the development. We all need to drive up and down Mountain View Road to get in and out of our community. That's a lot of vehicles every day. Added traffic from more homes and construction vehicles is not what we want. An added point of intersection is not what we need. Our Mountain View Road and Route 82 intersection is cumbersome enough as it is. We have made this very clear. The visibility is not good, and we all use it because Cherry Lane and Route 82 is even worse. We know the quality of our roads is less than ideal currently. It's been about 20 years or more since our roads received any blacktop. During development, added construction vehicles and trucks in and out of the neighborhood will undoubtedly deteriorate an already bad situation. After development, adding delivery, utility, emergency vehicles on top of more cars will compound and deteriorate the road condition. I know you say this is not in your scope of concern, but guess what? It is our concern. We live in this neighborhood. You simply can't look at the revenue this may provide to the town. Every aspect should be considered. How will this impact the local existing tax-paying community, the schools, the town services, and local traffic? We know we are experiencing a drought, the likes of which we have not seen in a long time. Our lawns can all prove it. Our wells in this 80-plus-year-old development are shallow, mostly about 50 to 70 feet. These new homes will have deep wells, which may very well affect our existing wells. You may tell us this won't happen, but what if it does? Is anyone going to pay to drill us a new deep well? I think not. Several years ago, one of our neighbors was having a deep well drilled. The house across the street had a flood in its basement as they were drilling. It was a good thing they were home and realized it. We were told this was due to pressure buildup. They had to stop drilling. They had to stop the drilling process. That could very likely happen when these wells are drilled as well. Has a water well impact analysis been done? We know these new high-end homes will increase our property values. All this means to us is higher taxes. We know we bought homes in our very modest neighborhood because it is fully developed. We had no intention of dealing with construction and all it entails, the noise and the dust. We have no idea how long this will all go on for. We all drive by the eyesore on the incomplete storage facility project on Route 52 and 82 intersection.
1 minute warning, please.
It truly is an eyesore and depressing. We all enjoy partaking in our quiet neighborhood, and this will affect us as well. I have submitted a FOIA request to the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. I am awaiting the report. We need to know if there is any impact on wildlife. It seems to me that if I were to buy a new home of substantial cost, I would want to go directly into my own development. I can't imagine a Johnson Trail sign on the side of Mountain View Road. If I were a developer, I would also want to know prior to purchasing this property what access road would be allowed, or rather, why should I even question the Route 82 access? If access from Route 82 was not looked favorably upon by the DOT, was there an indication that this new road off of Mountain View would be permitted prior to the purchase of this property? The letter from the DOT is dated August. Does that mean that Route 82 was never even pursued? It has also come to my attention that property has or will be deeded to the town to make Penny Place a true cul-de-sac. This, I know, would help for snowplow removal, but was this promised as in lieu of a road off of Mountain View Road.
So 4 minutes has been up a few seconds ago. If you would like to, you're welcome to submit the rest of your comments in writing, but we really do
Okay,
need to
I
stick.
just want to read my last paragraph. We would like to hope and believe that the town's planning board obligation is to the existing tax-paying residents of our neighborhood and not developers who no longer live there. Thank you.
All right, who else would like to speak tonight? Yep, come on up.
Hello, my name is Dominic Shekatano. I live on 98 Mountain View Road. I've been a resident of Fishkill my whole life. Two things come to mind with this proposed, or what we would rather have access to 82 from this proposed property, this proposed subdivision. Subdivision's a pretty general term. It could be 50 homes. In this case, it's 5 homes. It could be 2 homes. The 60 feet of property that borders Route 82, if there were 2 houses on this subdivision instead of 5, does the state look at those 2 houses as the same as it would 50 as far as access? So if this were a private road or private drive for 1 house or 2 houses, does the state look at that as the same as a 50-lot subdivision? My point is, if this were a private road coming off Route 82 into this subdivision of 5 lots, does the same rule apply from New York State DOT, whether you have access to Route 82 or not, whether it's 5 lots, 50 lots, 2 lots? Where's the, where do we find a difference between these subdivisions? Subdivision could be, as we know, hundreds and hundreds of houses. And I could understand the state's concern about letting a road out onto 82 with 100 houses or 50 or 20, 30, but this is only 5. So I think this is something the state needs to look at as far as, what we're putting forth. It's only 5. It's not 50. It's a small subdivision, and our concerns are well-founded. Also, a line of sight was mentioned in the DOT report. And a line of sight that I see coming out of this property, coming on 82, I'm on it daily, I'm on Route 82 every single day, is vegetation. And last I knew, any obstruction being vegetation is usually taken care of with a chainsaw. And not to mention that the state and even the county have made provisions to clear line of sights to make things more visible, clearing out outcroppings of rock, mounds of dirt, all kinds of things, to make way for traffic. So the vegetation, which is pretty close to Route 82, which I think is what they're talking about, the line of sight, would be greatly increased if that vegetation was cut back. So these are my concerns. Our line of sight coming out of Mountain View Road now is obstructed, and it's obstructed by a hill. Cars coming up over the hill. It's pretty limited there with the parking lots and the other access to 82 from the opposite side of the road. So when we're pulling out of Mountain View Road, making a left-hand turn, it's quite a challenge. That is a line of sight, and that's a line of sight that can't be changed. It's a hill. So now we're going to compound that problem by adding more vehicles. So that's our concern. Okay. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Yes, back there.
Good evening, my name is Ralph Pineda. I live at 53 Cherry Lane. My wife and I moved in last November, and although she can't be with me, she sent in an email. We both feel that this proposal will adversely affect the use and enjoyment of our home. I'd just like to know, is there anybody else that feels the same in this group? Will this adversely affect the use of your home?
Please address the board. We're not polling the audience, we're addressing the
Very
board.
good. Okay, that's all I have to say. We are adamantly opposed to this proposal.
All right, would anyone else like to speak tonight? Yes, come on up.
Good evening, Board. I'm Kevin Wynant. I live at 61 Cherry Lane. I have a question here. On the end of the Penny Place, you have this new snow storage area that's proposed. It hasn't been needed in 72 years. What's the urgency of it now? They've always just pushed the snow to the end. And my comment on that is I just think that's just another way of the developer to guarantee the people on Penny Place that you can't use Penny Place for access. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak tonight?
There's a lady on this side.
Yes, come on up.
Hello, my name is Dawn Peck. I live on 120 Mountain View Road. I just wanted to say that I am opposed to this as well. We own 2 properties. I don't think it's fair or just for all of these families that have been living here for 20-plus years, for 5 families off of the access and risking and taking all away our comforts that we've been having for many years. Thank you.
Thank you. Any others wish to speak tonight? All right. I see no more hands. I did want to mention we've heard that we did receive some new emails today. I'll just mention them quickly. I'm not going to read them, but they were from Daniel McNally, Diana Vanderwerf, Ralph Pineda, who we just heard from, and Megan Bliss. Again, a lot of the comments in these emails repeat things that were previously stated at public hearings, dealing with site access on Mountain View Road, impact of new wells being installed. There were also a couple of comments about Indiana bat possibly present on the site. I'll note that the applicant did submit a threatened and endangered species habitat suitability assessment report dated June 28th, 2021, to study possible impacts to the bat populations on or near the subdivision site. It includes mitigation measures to minimize and mitigate potential impacts, including limiting tree removal on the site to occur between October 1st and March 31st, when bats are not expected to be on the site as per New York State DEC guidelines. So, having said that, what I'd like to do at this point is to turn to our attorney and engineer for a recommendation on whether we should close the public hearing tonight. One thing I'll just mention before you guys weigh in, our traffic consultant from CPL did provide some comments on the traffic summary report. Those should result in some revisions and follow-up to the traffic report. But please, we would like to hear your recommendations on closing the public hearing tonight.
I see no reason why you shouldn't close it at this point. We've had this hearing open for 3 months now, and we're hearing the same comments over and over again. I think they've made their points, and I don't see a reason to keep it open beyond tonight.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I concur. You know, as I've noted in the past, the purpose of the public hearing is to bring matters to the board's attention from the public so the public can have an opportunity to comment on the project. There's been some important issues that have been brought forward by members of the public, and now it's up to the board, you know, to review those and also make determinations regarding the application overall. So I think that there's been a fair opportunity for the public to do so, and the comments at this point seem to be falling into the same categories, and nothing to my ears has been brought new tonight, but nevertheless it's been emphasized that the concerns of the public are on these issues that they want the board to focus on.
All right, thanks. How do the planning board members feel about closing the hearing tonight, or continuing the hearing until the October 13th meeting? One thing we've done in the past is we could close the meeting to in-person comments tonight and allow an additional period of time for the public to submit written comments, say until the close of business next Friday, September 16th, giving the public yet that one more opportunity to comment. But let's see what the board is feeling about it at this point.
I would be in favor of that, Mr. Chairman. I think we have kept it open for a few months. We've heard a lot from the public, and I think we have a grasp of the major concerns that they have, but I think I always like leaving it open for another week just to grab any, and I always encourage the public, please send us your letters. We read them. It makes it even easier for us to get all your comments in, so please just send in what you have to send in. So I would be in favor of that, Mr. Chairman.
Anthony, what do you think?
I definitely support closing the public hearing tonight, and I'm not even sure that we would need a written comment period, to be honest with you. The reason we kept the hearing open was because we were looking for some additional information from the applicant, which we had since received. I didn't hear any new topics come up tonight. We could, I mean, if that's the rest of the board's pleasure, I would gladly vote with them, but it's my opinion that, you know, I don't believe we're going to receive any new topics, so we could close the public hearing and consider not doing a written comment period. I think the intent of the written comment period was for projects where there were, you know, new issues being brought up, or you know, those types of projects. I don't think this falls into that category, but if that's what the board wants, I'll vote that way, but it would be my opinion to just close it altogether.
Fred, what do you think?
I agree with Bob. I mean, even the comments tonight were repeats of what we heard before, and there was nothing new brought up, even tonight. So I would be for just closing the public hearing now.
Jody?
I agree with Anthony.
Bob?
Same thing.
All right, well, it sounds like the consensus of the board, for the most part, seems to be closing the public hearing tonight. There is some debate about whether a written comment period should be allowed, but I'll ask somebody to make a motion, and we'll see where that motion goes.
I'll make the motion to close the public hearing for Johnson Trails subdivision.
I second it.
Fred seconds it.
Jody.
Jody, you want Jody to second it? All right, Jody
Yes.
seconds it. All right, any further discussion? And just so everyone understands what we're voting for, we're voting to close the public hearing tonight without an additional time period for written comments.
And you know, for discussion's sake, the public can still write to the planning board. Anything that's submitted does become part of the project record. Is that not, I mean...
Doesn't become part of the public hearing.
Not the public hearing.
It becomes part of the project record,
project,
and we do
right.
receive it. So that's not to say that somebody couldn't write to the board. I mean, just that the public hearing is closed. Is that correct, Dominic?
That's correct. I mean, it does become part of the file, and depending on the timing of the submission, you know, it may be considered by the board as part of your deliberations and processing the application. You know, typically it carries more weight if there's some new information that comes to light, you know, rather than a reiteration of what has happened before. But in the circumstances of that, then it becomes part of the record. But Debbie's absolutely correct. It's not part of the public hearing record.
Okay, are we ready to vote?
Sure.
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? So the motion to close the public hearing passes 6-0. Okay, so we will continue discussion of this project a little bit later on the agenda.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is a request for extension of approval. This is for 21 Westage Drive Restaurant, amended site development plan. Board to review applicant's request for an extension of the resolution of preliminary and final approval that was adopted on September 9th, 2021, and shall expire on September 9th, 2022. Welcome.
Hi, how are you?
Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
So if you could give us a very brief explanation of why the extension is needed.
A few things. We're waiting for another deal to close to finance this project. Plus, we're tweaking our finances due to the inflation, and plus had the loss of my dad this past year. So, it's, who was a member of this corporation. So it's complicated.
Sorry to hear
I mean, it's
that.
nothing, but just a few setbacks.
Right. Okay. Well, Dominic, I'll just ask you briefly if you have any comments or concerns about the legal aspects of the request. My understanding is that this isn't quite like a subdivision extension where there are specific 90-day periods that can be extended. This one is a little bit more open-ended, so I was thinking that perhaps the board might consider a one-year extension?
Yes, that's absolutely correct.
That'd be great.
Okay. All right. Well, would the board like to discuss this further, or are we ready for a motion?
Let's vote on it.
All right, so this will be a motion to approve the request for an extension of the resolution of preliminary and final approval for the 21 Westage Drive Restaurant, amended site development plan to September 9th, 2023.
So moved.
Felix moves that. Is there a second?
Second.
Bob seconds it. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, the extension for 1 year is
All
granted.
right. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming. Thank you.
When are you opening?
What's that?
When are you opening?
I could be the first to know.
Okay, good luck.
All right. That was a good question, Felix.
Yes.
We all want to know. This is a new submittal. This is for the Foam and Wash amended site development plan. Applicant seeks to amend the existing site development plan for the demolition of the existing motor vehicle service portion of the existing structure and the construction of a new touch-free car wash tunnel, including improvements to the car wash vehicle queuing, automated pay stations, and additional parking vacuum bays. This is located at 778 Route 9 in the general business zone, and it consists of 1.15 acres. This would be to refer the application to the Town Planning Board Engineer, Town Planning Board Attorney, Dutchess County Department of Planning and Development, and the Rombout Fire District. And the Planning Board will allow informal comments from the public after the discussion of this application. Welcome.
Good evening, folks.
Good evening.
J.D. Singh with Maury Architects. Working with Foam and Wash Car Wash, and Gary Wright's here tonight from Foam and Wash. They currently have the facility at 778 Route 9, as the chairman mentioned. Property is about 1.15 acres in size, and it's on the east side of Route 9, located in the general business district. Our proposal before the board tonight, as the chairman mentioned, is we're looking to remove the oil change portion of the building, which is the south side of the building, and then we would construct a new touch-free car wash tunnel in its place. So the traffic flow on the site basically is going to stay the same. You would enter off of Route 9, you would queue up into either the touch-free tunnel or a separate driveway for the soft cloth tunnel. Each of those driveways would have a kiosk, a cashier kiosk, where a customer would choose what type of wash they would want, and they could pay right at the kiosk. There's actually two at the entrance for the soft cloth, so they have the one for customers that would pay for just an individual car wash, and then they have the unlimited membership car washes, so that's a separate lane. Then after exiting the car wash, they would come out and they have the opportunity to use the vacuums that are currently on the, that's the west side of the site, on the Route 9 side. We're going to be replacing the vacuums. We're going to be putting in the arch-style vacuums you may have seen at some of our other car washes, namely Wappingers has those. And then we're also going to be adding vacuums up on the south side here. That's right adjacent to the addition for the touch-free tunnel. So the building itself, and I'll just try to scroll through this real quick. The building itself will get a facelift too. We're going to be installing metal siding panels over the stucco finish that's there. We're going to maintain that pyramid roof that's at the exit of the soft cloth tunnel. And then in the red section there that you can see on the right side where that arrow is the new touch-free tunnel that we're going to have. We're going to be replacing and modernizing the signage on the building. There'll be a soft cloth sign at the exit of that tunnel, and then also a touch-free sign at the exit of the touch-free tunnel. And then we'll be adding on the south side of the building, the south-facing side is just going to be a standard foam and wash car wash sign. I'll just mention that the signage that we're proposing to install is actually less in square footage than what's there today. It's about 15 square feet less, so we're reducing that. Other than that, we're going to be freshening up the landscaping. We have a whole new landscaping plan for the site, so it really should be an improvement there. We're going to be paving and striping the lot. I submitted a photometric plan in your package, and the main site lighting is going to stay the same. The photometrics that we submitted are for some task lighting that's going to be on the arches of those vacuums, so people, when they're cleaning their cars, if they're there, later in the day, they have some good lighting. There's a drainage and utility plan in your package. I mean, the basic drainage systems and the utility systems there are going to be staying the same. We're actually reducing the impervious coverage on the site, so that's another improvement that we're looking forward to. And other than that, I think that's pretty much what we have, what we're proposing. So certainly look forward to any questions or comments you might have.
I do have a question.
Sure.
I don't believe you're in the Lenham Water District.
I'm sorry?
On the application, it states you're in the Lenham Water District.
Okay.
And Lenham is on the other side of town.
I believe
you're in the village.
I believe that shows up on their water bills. That's where we got that information from, but we certainly will verify that, and I would update it if it's necessary.
I did want to mention the applicant has filed the required application fee and escrow deposit. Other questions or comments from board members? Bob, anything? No. You were speaking about the lighting and, at dark hours. What types of hours of operation do you currently have, and what would be proposed?
The soft cloth tunnel operates, they open roughly at about 8 o'clock, and I think they close around 9, Gary? Yep, and then the touch-free tunnel, that would be a 24-hour operation.
24.
Yep.
So it's like the other site down the road?
Yeah, just like the Wapping.
So the other place is going to still be manned with full, with staff like it is now? Okay.
Yes. Yeah, there'll be attendance.
Okay.
There'll be attendance there when the soft cloth is open. Obviously, at night with the touch-free, it's automated, so people can use that on their own.
Another comment I do have, because I watch it a lot, is a lot of people go into the entrance before yours because they think they're turning into your spot, and I don't know if you can do anything about it. But then they come right back out and make that quick U-turn. I don't know how that could affect the traffic. I don't know if you can do anything about that.
Yeah, the driveways are fairly close together, but we can look at, maybe there's some directional signage or something we could add.
Yes, because again, at least 1 out of 20 cars go into the next door neighbor and come back out.
Okay. All right, we'll take a look at that.
Anyone else have any comments or questions?
No.
One thing I was going to ask is, I appreciate the new landscaping plan. I think the improvements to the building will help to spruce things up as well, but there are some nice mature trees on the site. I saw on the landscape plan, there was one island of, I guess, 1 or 2 trees and some shrubs that would be retained, but are any other of the nice mature trees going to be incorporated into the landscape plan?
Well, there's a cluster of birch trees right near the entrance. That's kind of right where that arrow is right now. So those are going to stay and remain. Those are some nice trees. And then there's also some landscaping in this island here that we're proposing to leave, and some more here in the back.
Yeah, I noticed those areas were not labeled, so it might help to identify what's in there and that they are planned to stay.
No problem.
Yeah, I think the other large mature trees are in the frontage on the north side of the entrance. And there's some, pretty large size deciduous and evergreens. I guess it would probably be difficult to blend those in with the new plantings that would be going in, but if there's anything that could be done to save some of those nice large trees, that would probably be a good idea.
Okay, we'll take a look at that. Some seem to be kind of overgrown and gotten to the end of their aesthetic life, I guess, aesthetically pleasing life, but we'll take another look at that and see if there's any that we can save there.
Okay. All right. If there are no other comments from the board at this point, we will have a little bit more full review of this at the October meeting, assuming that the board does accept and refer this application. So before we do that, I wanted to check to see if there's anyone in the audience who would like to come up and make informal comments at this point. This is something that we've been trying to do over the last couple of years to kind of give a more full opportunity for the public to speak, even outside of the public hearing format. So if anyone would like to come up, this would be the time for informal comments. Raise your hand. Yes, come on up.
Not that I really planned on saying anything about
Would
this.
you state your name, please?
I'm sorry, my name is Debbie Basher. I frequent this facility, love your products. I enjoy using. The one thing going in and out of there, I find the entrance very narrow. Going in, coming out, if there is another car, passing, coming in and out, it's a little tight. So that would be my concern. That entrance needs to possibly be widened a little with larger SUVs. I drive a small car, but I feel it's a little tight.
All right, we appreciate that comment. All right, anyone else like to make any informal comments at this point? Seeing none. So again, any final questions or comments from any board members or any of our consultant staff?
Nothing at this
I know this hasn't been referred to our consultants yet, so that's what we're about to do. All right, would someone like to make a motion to accept the application for the proposed foam and wash amended site development plan located at 778 Route 9, and to refer this application to the Town Planning Board Engineer, Town Planning Board Attorney, Dutchess County Department of Planning and Development, and the Rombout Fire District for review and comment?
So moved.
Fred moves it. Is there a second?
Second.
Felix seconds it. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, that passes 6-0. So again, we'll have a more complete discussion at the October meeting. And Debbie has a package for you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks for coming.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right.
Any questions, take them.
All right, So now we're at project reviews, and we're back to Johnson Trails 5-lot subdivision. Board to review submission made by the applicant's representative on August 24th, 2022. Welcome again, Mr. Gillespie.
Welcome. Thank you.
So we'll allow you to give any further update that you'd like to, or to talk about any of the other issues that came up during the public hearing.
Yeah, so as mentioned during the public hearing portion, the plan itself in terms of layout and lot line layout and road location and so forth hasn't changed much really for the last few months. We went ahead and submitted a revised SWIP, the letter from the DOT, and I don't want to say it was a traffic report. I entitled it a traffic summary, which basically took a look at the access again to 82, which the DOT came back and are very clear about, and then provided some geometric data and some potential increase in traffic based upon our subdivision. I don't have the report with me, but I want to say that there's almost 80 homes that sit back there, which I have to believe again that Cherry Lane, which is another way in and out, it's a precarious issue. So I assume that everybody comes out to a safer access point, which is 82 and Mountain View, which is exactly what we're proposing. So, I see most of the comments are generated around the SWIP and providing some cleanup and things there. I don't know if, I guess we can refer it to John, because I know there's some comments here regarding the traffic summary report, maybe from an in-house traffic person you may have there. So maybe I can work directly with them to try and clean things up and come back and try to make it to the next step. So.
Yeah, why don't we ask John to give us a summary of the CPL memo?
Sure. As Mr. Gillespie stated, the majority of our comments in our August 25th memo are stormwater related, and if the board is okay with it, we believe it would be beneficial for the applicant to work directly with us to get through that, because there are a number of issues that need to be addressed, and they're mostly technical in nature. I'm not going to go through all of them tonight. So if the board's okay with that, I think that would be a good idea to move this forward, because that's really the biggest issue from our standpoint going forward is getting the stormwater up to snuff. And also, as Mr. Gillespie correctly stated, the traffic study really wasn't an official traffic impact study. It was really more directed toward addressing the public comments. We did still have some comments regarding some of the data they used, and we'd like them to respond to that. And it may make sense for them to discuss directly with our traffic expert as to what they're looking for. So that's essentially where we stand with our review. Stormwater being the main concern.
Also, John, I was going to ask you more specifically on the issue of the wells, if you had any, further comments that might help address that.
Early on in the process, because of the density surrounding the property, we did ask the applicant to consider, when they do their required well testing, to offer to monitor some of the adjacent property owners' wells, and I believe they agreed to do that. I'm not sure that the town can force them to. Sometimes the health department asks for the same thing, and you haven't made a submission to the health department at this point, have you? Or
we have, but
you have,
yeah,
okay.
But related to the specific well issue, I indicated the discussion that I had with Jim Upright up there, and kind of went through basically effectively what I told you relative to potential impact, and again, shallow wells and deep wells. So I did specifically address that and have that discussion with the health department. So, you know, long story short, and I know it's easy to say, but he doesn't believe there's going to be any impact based upon this subdivision, based upon anything else that's out there. If we could continue with this, I can probably get something a little tighter in writing, whether it's an email too, just to cover it. But you know, I indicated in my discussion, you know, verbatim in my last response. So.
Okay, does that mean that that is no longer on the table to consider?
No, we had made, again, early in the process, we had a neighbor that approached us separately before the public hearings and so forth, and, you know, he was concerned about that issue, so we certainly said, you know, we volunteered the fact that we do that for him.
Okay. I think that would give the board all the information they need in terms of potential well impacts if they're able to do that.
When is that going to be done?
Yeah, same question.
Well, that's really up to the applicant. They're going to have to do it before the health department signs off. I mean, the test wells. So it would be before the board would grant any final approval.
Right. You know, they typically don't like to get involved until at least they have a preliminary approval, you know, indicating that things aren't going to change on a layout perspective. So once we get through the final comments, we would look for obviously a resolution of preliminary, and then we would think about dropping those wells.
Let me, I'll ask John, but also Dominic, wouldn't the well issue be really a seeker issue to address as well?
It would be. It would be a seeker issue. You know, I mean, there are ways to deal with it. There could be a well monitoring protocol that's put in place, you know, that could be a condition of the approval, you know, that would you know, require the applicant to monitor and even mitigate, you know, certain wells if there was shown to be some level of impact. But that's not uncommon. It's something that could be made a condition of the approval by the board.
Okay. It's the mitigation part that concerns me. I mean, monitoring is all well and good, but I use the word well, but I mean, if the results show that it's, you know, affecting other people's wells and there's no teeth that says, okay, well, the monitoring shows that it affects it, but there's nothing in place that says here's what the applicant needs to do to help these people out. Monitoring does no good then. So I think there has to be a protocol in place that says, all right, if these people's wells are being adversely affected, that the applicant's got to do something about it.
If that were to be the case, then certainly the health department would get more involved at that point, because apparently their position right now is they don't believe that there are going to be any impacts. But
I mean, I don't like that. I mean, I'm sorry for the health department to come out and say we believe. I think that's kind of BS, to be honest with you. I mean, I'm not I thought the health department was a little more official than that.
Well, I mean, this was a discussion that I had with him, but again, at the end of the day, I mean, and understood that this is the forum that you hear that, but this is a health department issue. All right, health department's concerned with well location, water quality, things such as that. So I understand you've got to make a decision here regarding seeker and whether it's that kind of an impact, but this does typically always solely rest with the health department.
So I guess the next question would be doing some of these test well pits sooner rather than later. It's not something that the health department will require you to do prior to their formal review, but it is something that perhaps the planning board and the applicant could work out prior to making a seeker determination, because it could become an important issue for the seeker.
I think, Mr. Chairman, I think it's actually an overstatement to say that it's entirely a health department issue, because this board is lead agency for the environmental review. And so you do have to make certain conclusions as to whether or not there's going to be an impact to groundwater in the area.
We're ahead of ourselves already with the submission to the health department. Typically, we're not supposed to make that until the seeker determination is done by this board and then resolution of preliminary approval. So that's procedurally the way it's supposed to be done. We're not saying that we won't monitor one of the wells that we promised we would, but that's out of sequence, and I think without having some assurance that we're moving forward on the subdivision, we're not going to be willing to drop test wells out there and doing all the testing and so forth without having something from the board moving to the next step. I mean, this is...
The problem is, which I think Dominic is probably going to expand on, is that we can't make a secret determination without that information, and we can't issue preliminary subdivision approval if the seeker determination doesn't have sufficient information for the board to go ahead with that.
What I would suggest is a couple things, if I may. One would be, there's been some discussion regarding the monitoring of at least one other adjacent homeowner's well. I think it would be best for the applicant to put in writing like exactly what it is being proposed in connection with this so that the board can evaluate it. I think the board is also authorizing Mr. Bodendorf to work directly with Mr. Gillespie to clean up any of the technical items that are addressed in his comments. I would also recommend that the board actually authorize preparation of a Part 2 EAF at a minimum so that you could consider it when the resubmission is made along with these other items so you can move the project along. But I think that just more detail needs to be placed on this discussion because there's been a number of public comments in connection with the potential for well impacts. And I think that, an issue has been identified to the planning board. It's an environmental issue. It's within the board's purview. And so now you have an issue that's been identified. Seeker requires you to take a hard look at that issue in order to move it forward. There's certainly a pathway to do so. It's not an insurmountable hurdle, but I think that this kind of discussion tonight is just preliminary to having something that gives the board and the public more concrete measures that will be put in place to address the concern.
I can do that. We have to make those, we have to get together and get that tightened up. We'll provide more detail on what we plan on doing as a, I don't want to say a mitigative measure, but to ensure that there's not an issue relative to potential impacts on adjoining property owners. And then obviously the Part 2 of the seeker form we can push together. But I think if we can all get that together and get in next month, maybe we may be able to move. It doesn't hurt us in terms of moving forward. So.
Yeah, well, I think one thing we'll do in a minute is, before we forget, why don't we ask for a motion to authorize our consultants at CPL, and perhaps, if there are some legal issues at this point, maybe we should authorize that our planning board attorney also, be in the loop to discuss anything with the applicant's attorney. So would somebody like to make a motion to authorize our consultants, both engineering and attorney, to discuss the issues that have been coming up in this review with the applicant's representatives?
So moved.
Felix moves it. Is there a second? Okay, Anthony seconds it. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, so that is authorized. Okay.
Mr. Chair, I just want to ask a question, please.
Certainly.
About the hammerhead?
Yep, go ahead.
Was that requested by the highway department, or was that requested by the subdivider?
No, that was requested by the town.
That was requested by the town. And that will be a town road?
Yeah, and I wanted to make that point too, because it's some of the way it's been written in a couple of things, but the proposal is to transfer that hammerhead plus, shoulder around it to the town along with the road, so that would be owned by the town.
One of our comments erroneously refers to it as an easement, but it is going to be dedicated to the town, so we'll correct that in our next memo.
All right.
So that was a verbal request? That wasn't like an in-writing request?
No. We actually went to the highway superintendent and sat with him twice, and we actually, I think early in the process, actually got a letter out of him.
Yeah, I was part of one of those meetings with
Right.
the highway super. That's what they wanted.
Yeah, I don't see there being any benefit to the subdivider, putting that hammerhead in.
I'm sorry?
Well, I don't see any benefit to the subdivider.
There's
for
zero.
Putting the hammerhead in.
Right.
It's,
There's no
There's
benefit.
no access to any of the houses.
No, there's no benefit. It's just at the end of Penny Place is a tough place to have fire trucks and have snow trucks turn around.
And who's going to handle the drainage into that? Is that part of the drainage that you have with?
Well, one of the
talk
things
about
on,
with the,
on the edge of the new or the hammerhead, there's proposed to be on the back side of that kind of like a depression, which will allow snow to sit in and then kind of work its way into the ground. So.
Okay, and are you going to blacktop the whole subdivision now? No, the whole area?
I do suggest that she does speak to the highway superintendent about the balance of the subdivision.
Any other questions or comments from board members? I have a couple of things, but I'd like to hear from other board members first.
I'm just curious, like, maybe it's a dumb question to ask or whatever, but the Board of Health, like, is there a determination of what the health of the groundwater system is right now?
With the health of the groundwater supply?
Yeah.
Again, so the discussion was such that there's an abundant, there's no issues that that they know of really. Sometimes you have different areas in town and different towns where, people drilling wells and they're getting half gallon a minute. This is not one of those areas, based upon the information that the health department has in the record, okay? So, they would be the ones that would have it. Again, his frank response to me was there's not going to be an issue regarding these wells or impact. But again, getting something like that is hard to get in writing, but I will attempt it.
Yeah, that would definitely help.
Yes.
Okay.
Jody, any questions or comments? I wanted to just reiterate a few things that I know have been discussed in previous meetings, one of which, they relate to the plan sets, one of which is the tree preservation plan, which I was happy to see added to the plan. But we had requested more details regarding the specifics of the tree preservation plan, how trees would be protected during construction and disturbance. Also, we had suggested thinking about, it's a little early, but thinking about the approach towards protecting trees in the future after, development occurs. And this would be probably through deed restrictions in the individual lot deeds. But we wanted to get your thinking on that a little bit more. But certainly the plan detail needs to be updated a little bit with the specifics of the tree preservation plan, because it was pretty generalized at this point. Also, I know we've indicated that lighting specs need to be provided demonstrating that the street lights are fully dark sky compliant. I think that's definitely a way that municipalities are going with utilities like that. And then also, I was definitely interested in seeing the follow-ups to CPL's traffic consultants' comments, and so again, you'll have an opportunity to talk directly to CPL about those. So the one thing that I started thinking about after hearing all this discussion tonight, I had originally thought, well, maybe we should begin to consider authorizing the preparation of a Part 2 environmental assessment form at minimum. I'm a little bit uncomfortable seeing as how there may still be some loose ends that won't really be able to be covered yet in the environmental assessment form. But I wanted to see what planning board members thought. I mean, one thing we can do and have done, I suppose, is request a draft of the EAF Part 2 be done so that the board could go through them. But, at this point, I'm not quite sure how far we actually could get through it at the next meeting. But what do you all think?
I would support the drafting of the document, but I would also ask the question of whether a site visit's appropriate, because it's come up a few times, and there's been some comments tonight. In particular, I think the board should see where this cul-de-sac road is coming off the existing road. I heard one person speak that he lives right across the street from where the road's going in, and if you got cars coming out, if this were to happen, at the very least, there would be glare or headlights potentially affecting this person's property. I mean, it'd be nice to see how that's situated and who that may affect, either visually or safety-wise. I think for us to be out there, considering the questions that have been brought up and the fact that this hearing was held open for 3 months, I think the site visit by this board collectively is appropriate. And then we would have a draft EAF to consider at the next meeting, and maybe we'd have the site visit under our belt, and can maybe speak to the whether there are significant impacts or not a little bit better.
What do other board members think about, first, about the site visit? I'll just mention, I think I've mentioned at past meetings a few times that board members should by now have had a chance to go out and visit the site. I'm not so sure we need a full planning board, joint site visit at this point. If people haven't seen it, then perhaps you would want to go out there and look at it, because it's important. If you haven't done it yet, you should. But, I'll see what others think about doing a joint site visit. I, for one, am going to be pretty busy over the next month, and I don't know if I would be able to get out, but I've been out there myself a few times. So whatever we do, I'd strongly recommend that individual board members do that.
It's a fair point. I mean,
Well, Mr. Chairman, I've been out there also, but I would like to do the site visit also, because I would like to see exactly where everything's at. Because sometimes when, you do the site visit yourself, you think you know where everything's at, but, I'm not always sure I'm in the right spots, right? So I would like to do it, because I think Anthony brought up some of the things I was thinking about, and really wondering if that new road is the best way or not. Because, like Anthony said, we had one person come today talking about where their home is compared to this new road. So it's certain things we have to think about. I think for myself, walking the site would be a good thing. I know if you can't make it, I understand, but I think I would like to be there.
So shall we ask Debbie to try to set up and coordinate a joint site visit, which I will not probably be able to make, but again, I feel comfortable that I've been out there and I understand the parameters of the site proposal and the elements of the site. So again, I don't see why planning board members can't do that on their own. You should be doing that anyway, but if it's the desire of the board to authorize the scheduling of a joint site visit, so be it. Would someone like to make a motion to request that the planning office schedule a joint site visit of as many of the planning board members who are available to attend?
Can I ask one favor, that somebody give me some dates that I can work with?
I can't.
Want somebody from the board, please?
Saturday morning seemed to be when we...
This Saturday?
We're just saying Saturday morning in general, Debbie.
Okay, well,
I know, I understand that.
It's very difficult because I also have to place it on the website and then
Okay.
I have timelines. So.
I'm not saying no, I'm just, I think we can ask other board members too, what,
Agreed.
yes. It's not just,
This Saturday, next Saturday.
Can I ask a question before we do that? Is the new road, it's between the two houses, is it marked where the new road is going to be at all?
No, I mean, we have the sign out front for the advertising.
Yeah, I saw that, but it's not...
Not marked.
right.
Actually, one thing that the board, I think, should request the applicant do at this point is to mark and stake features, especially like the proposed road, which is actually a requirement in our subdivision regulations.
If that was done, that would allow us to go out there on our own time and perhaps help.
And site visits that are jointly scheduled, that's kind of a requirement, not quite, I shouldn't say kind of, it is a requirement in the subdivision regulations to require such staking be done of the road and driveway locations.
May I just make one brief comment?
Certainly.
I just want to emphasize that the roads are public roads. I think they're not private. So the developers and the new homeowners absolutely have the right to access public roads.
Yeah, what we're looking for is the...
Staking out.
Yeah,
I understand
the new
that.
road that's coming in?
Yeah. Yes.
Where it is on Mountain View Road. I mean, I've been out there enough, so I have a good idea where it is. And I've been to the Hammerhead, I don't care about that. All right, I do, all right, but I think the group was talking about the gentleman who has the light problem, potential light problem, with the cars coming out, and if we can see where that road is coming out, maybe it doesn't affect him at all.
Maybe I misunderstood. It started to sound like the comments were that they don't have the right to access, but obviously you have the right to access
No,
public
we're not
roads.
looking at, no.
Just want to make that
We're looking
clear.
at to see where they come out on Mountain View
Understood.
Road.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Just as a quick hit, I mean, we've talked about the site visit before.
Yes,
actually.
Yeah, I know you have.
And encouraged it. But now we're being, if you do want to go out there again, it may not be within an inch, but I can get you pretty close, run a couple stakes out there.
Yeah,
so
just
you
put a
see
couple
where
of
it is.
stakes in and we go on our own.
That's-
There's nothing else.
that's fine, yeah.
There's nothing else we're gonna go in and look at.
Right.
Unless you're gonna walk into all of the property.
Okay.
And we don't. Yeah. And to go to the other place, for the Hammerhead, you can actually see that easily.
Yeah,
All right? I mean, I don't know exactly where, know exactly where it's gonna go in. So it's just the 2 stakes, if you can put them in. and
I can get one
people
there,
go out
one
on
in the
their own,
woods,
we
you
don't
can
have to worry
follow the line
about it.
straight, yeah. And again, within 6 inches, I can get you there, so,
If you would.
yeah, okay.
Mr. Chair, would that be okay?
Yeah, and another option the board has is if it's not going to be a quorum of board members present at the site visit, 2 or 3 individual members can get together informally and go out without scheduling, without, having the planning office necessarily schedule it.
So,
I think the
Isn't
staking
that
out
correct,
road
Bob?
would be the biggest thing.
Isn't that one of the things you told us that we actually could do?
put 2 stakes in.
You got it. I'll put one front, one at the where the woods start, which is where the cul-de-sac starts, you know what I mean?
Well, I don't know if we care about where the cul-de-sac starts because it's going straight back. But we don't know where it's coming out on Mountain View Road.
I'll give you one there.
Yeah, if you put 2 stakes in, one at one side of it, one at the other, then we know how wide it is.
Okay, gotcha. All right, that way, not that way.
I mean, we're pretty logical that we can look straight back.
Right.
And see where eventually it's going to go.
Right, okay, you got it.
So where do we stand in terms of a formal versus an informal site visit of less than a quorum of board members?
I think we can, if you can do that for us, I think. Because like I've been out there, I just don't know exactly where it's
Yeah,
going to be.
I can get somebody to get them in there tomorrow.
You can tell me when, Mike, and then I can pass this to the board that they're out there.
That would, yeah.
After we get them in,
Yes.
I'll shoot an email. Yeah.
We'll go, all right, yeah, informal.
Yep, okay.
It's informal. I've been out there and it's grass and it's been dry grass.
Right, very dry grass.
All right, so that leaves us with the question of preparation of a draft environmental assessment form part 2. Again, I think there is some difference of opinion, at least on my part, but if somebody would like to make a motion authorizing our consultants at CPL to prepare a draft environmental assessment form part 2 for the October 13th meeting, you can feel free to make such a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Fred moves.
I'll second.
Anthony seconds it. Any further discussion?
No.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I'll say no. Any abstentions? Okay, hearing none. That's 5 in favor, 1 opposed, and no abstentions. Okay, I won't even ask about a draft resolution of preliminary approval there.
Okay.
All right, so I think we're set.
Drop your line. Okay. Yep. All right, thank you, folks.
Okay.
Have a good night. Yep.
Thank you, you too. Can we take like a 5-minute break?
Please.
Okay.
At your pleasure.
We'll start off at 8:35. Thanks.
Yeah, I think I have.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. The next item on the agenda is 589 New York State Route 52 and 557 New York State Route 52 lot line realignment. Board to review draft resolution of preliminary and conditional final approval. So, welcome. We're going to ask our attorney, Dominic Cordisco, if he would be willing to just briefly take us through the draft resolution.
Yes, I'm just pulling it up right now. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So there was a draft that should be before you, and thank you for everyone who stepped forward to help circulate and finalize drafts while I was out. So this resolution of conditional final approval is for the lot line realignment for 589 New York State Route 52 and 557 New York State Route 52. The beginning of the resolution goes through the procedural status and makes certain findings regarding that. The beginning on page 2, there's findings specifically that the proposed lot line realignment is part of a plan for the orderly, efficient, and economical development of the town, and also making a finding that the application is not subject to the Town of Fishkill Code Section 150-79 regarding aquifer protection overlay, and that a certificate of appropriateness pursuant to Town of Fishkill Code Section 150-137 historic structures and site regulation is also not required. There are a number of conditions attached to the resolution if it's granted by the board. The first one would be that the owner's consent block shall be signed and dated by the owners following the last date of revision. 2, that the applicant shall submit proof of satisfactory compliance with and or resolution of any applicable concerns addressed in the review memorandum, which were presented to the planning board by the town engineer dated August 25th, copies of which have been distributed to the applicant's representative. 3, that the final revised lot line plan submitted for the planning board's chairman's signature shall include the planning board approval block. 4, that the applicant shall reimburse the town of Fishkill for all costs incurred for the town in review of this revised lot line proposal. 5, the grantor of land shall submit a proposed deed for review and approval by the planning board attorney, conveying the portion of land to the adjoining lot or parcel owner. 6, the owner of the adjoining lot parcel shall submit a proposed deed describing the overall parcel as a single parcel, so basically a consolidation once the conveyance is made. Those are conditions 1 through 6 that have to be satisfied prior to the signature on the plat. And
Dominic, before you go on, condition number 2 regarding compliance with our letter of August 25th, we didn't have any further comments, so we can probably just strike that condition altogether.
I was going to suggest that as well.
right.
I noted that you didn't have any conditions, but certainly that can be deleted.
So we'll scratch number 2 and then renumber everything else.
Yep, that will be then 1 through 5 that have to be satisfied prior to the signature on the plat. And then it has standard conditions beyond that, that the plat has to be filed within 62 days of the date of signing, and also the technical requirements of how the plat is submitted to the board. And finally, that if there's a need for an extension, that the extension has to be submitted in writing according to the conditions as laid out in the resolution.
Thank you very much.
Certainly.
All right, so this one is pretty straightforward, and that is actually the intention of the recent amendment to the town code, treating lot line realignments on a much more simplified basis than a regular subdivision.
Mr. Chair, I believe at
Yep.
the last meeting, there was a question about the basketball court. Has that been?
Yeah, we had a discussion with Joel and also the supervisor, and that was a non-issue.
Okay.
Pardon me, I never had any issue with flooding. In these 5 years I had it. It's perfect. It's no problem.
Yeah, I don't have, I just think that having the question asked and responded to for the record is sufficient, but thank you for that. It wasn't mentioned anywhere, so
Yeah,
that's good enough for me.
So that is on the record now.
It is?
Yes, it is.
Thank you, Anthony. Any other questions or comments from board members?
No, that was it.
Good. Any other questions or comments from our attorney or engineer?
Nope.
Otherwise, I think we could go ahead and see if someone would like to make a motion to approve the draft resolution of conditional final approval for the 589 New York State Route 52 and 557 New York State Route 52 lot line realignment as discussed and revised tonight.
As amended, right?
As amended.
I said and as revised tonight.
So moved.
Moved by
Second.
Felix,
Go ahead.
seconded by Fred. Any
Yeah,
further-
that's fine.
What?
I was giving it to Jody, but that's all right.
Oh, I heard your voice. We could, if you want to arm wrestle for it, you could. All right, Fred seconds it. Any further discussion?
No.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, the resolution passes 6-0. Thank you so much. I think you're all set.
Thank you to all members and the board. Thank you very much.
Any questions or anything?
Really happy that you set yourself.
Okay.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Good night.
Be careful what you buy in the future.
He's leaving while he's ahead. It's a good move.
All right, the next item on the agenda is Walmart Fishkill Market Fulfillment Center, amended site development plan. Board to review draft resolution of preliminary and conditional final approval. Welcome, sir.
Good evening, how are you?
Again, we're going to ask our attorney to review the draft resolution. Did you happen to have a chance to review it?
Yes, yep.
Okay.
I have that here.
All right, Dominic, could you do that?
Yes, I'm just pulling it up. My apologies.
Well, this one would be, I think, draft number 6, dated August 23rd, 2022.
Yes, I just want to make sure I had the right one, because this was discussed at...
Yeah, there were quite a few drafts of this one.
Yes, and just so everyone's clear, this was discussed at last month's meeting as well. And so this is draft number 6, it's dated August 23rd.
Right.
Once again, the preamble addresses all of the procedural aspects of the application.
I think this probably was reviewed at the August meeting, and there were...
It was.
The main changes were in the performance bond and maintenance bond and inspection fee sections, right?
That's correct.
That's correct.
Yeah. So if you'd like me to just jump right ahead to there.
Yeah, please.
There weren't any substantive changes anywhere else.
No.
Yeah. The two sections that were changed were the performance bond required and the maintenance bond required. Those sections have been filled in now. This begins on page 4 of 7. And in regards to the performance bond, the condition is that the applicant shall post with the building department a performance bond or other security to secure to the town the satisfactory installation of site improvements required by the site development plan approval, including but not limited to grading, erosion, and sediment controls, landscaping, stormwater management improvements, sidewalks, etc., but not including building construction. The amount of such bond is based on an estimate submitted by the applicant in the amount of $763,679.75.
I don't believe it.
Reviewed by the planning board's engineer and approved by the town board. The performance bond shall be in a form acceptable to the town attorney, and the supporting security shall be in the form of a cash deposit, the assignment of a bank account, or the posting of a letter of credit. There's also a maintenance bond required. A maintenance bond or security in the amount of $6,200 shall be posted and remain in place for a period of 1 year post-issuance of the C of O or C of C to ensure that the landscaping improvements and plantings installed are maintained in a vigorous growing condition or otherwise replaced with new plants as appropriate. Prior to the release of the financial security, the building inspector or the planning board's engineer shall conduct an inspection and assessment of the landscape plantings and screening and submit a report to the clerk of the planning board concerning the condition of the landscape plantings and screening and the intention to release the security on a date certain. Those were the only two changes.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from board members?
No.
No.
Or from Mr. Bodendorf?
Not at this end.
Any other follow-ups?
Nope.
All right. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the draft resolution of conditional final approval for the site development plan? Let's see. Preliminary and conditional final approval for the amended site development plan for the Walmart Fishkill Market Fulfillment Center as discussed tonight. Let's see, we didn't have any revisions on that one. Okay, so is there a motion?
I'll make the motion, but did you say and to authorize the chair to sign?
I did not. And to authorize, would you like to make that part of your motion?
I will make that part of my motion.
And I will second that whole motion.
Thank you. All right, Felix seconds it. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? So that passes 6-0.
All right.
I think we're all set.
All right.
Any questions or?
Not for me, nope.
No.
Debbie, did you have anything?
No,
Okay,
I'm good, thank you.
okay.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for coming.
Rambo Fire. How much money did you guys save us?
If we were here a couple months earlier, it would have been a little bit more. A lot more.
All right, so we are now at the Rombout Fire District Station 2, Site Development Plan and Floodplain Development Permit. Board to review draft resolution of conditional final approval and floodplain development permit. Welcome, Larry.
Well, good to be here, thank you. Good to see you again, John.
So this time we have two separate resolutions we're going to go through. So let's do them one at a time. So Dominic, would you like to do this again? This one starting with the site development plan approval resolution?
Yes, the draft that I'm working off of is draft number 4. It's dated September 1st, 2022. The first page, once again, deals with the procedural aspects of the application. I will note that at the top of the second page, it confirms that a negative declaration for seeker purposes was adopted on October 14th, 2021. On the second page also, the board makes certain findings in connection with the application. That includes that the planning board has considered the proposed location of main and accessory buildings on the site and their relation to one another, traffic circulation within the site, height and bulk of buildings, provision of off-street parking spaces, provision of buffer areas and other open spaces on the site, and display of signs, so that any development will adequately handle pedestrian and vehicular traffic within the site in relation to the street system adjoining and will harmoniously and satisfactorily fit in with contiguous land and buildings in adjacent neighborhoods. In addition, the Planning Board has considered the factors of architectural design as it relates to the character of the site and the community, existing and proposed landscaping plans, drainage, road alignment, sewage and waste disposal, air and water pollution, and other environmental, aesthetic, and engineering aspects of such a site development plan. The findings go on to state that the application for site development plan approval met the requirements for referral to the Dutchess County Department of Planning and Development for its review, and the referrals were made, and the Dutchess County Department of Planning and Development provided its comments to the Planning Board on October 8th, 2021. The Planning Department indicated that this is a matter of local concern. The board also makes the finding that this application is not subject to the Town of Fishkill Code Section 15079 regarding aquifer protection overlay, and also that it is not subject to the requirements for a certificate of appropriateness pursuant to Town Code Section 150-137, historic structures and site regulation. And then there are specific conditions that are imposed. Outside agency approvals are required, that the applicant shall obtain all permits and approvals from all agencies having jurisdiction over the project and provide proof of same to the Town of Fishkill, which permits and approvals include A, conceptual approval from the New York State Department of Transportation for the site access and associated improvements to New York State Route 52. B, approval from the County Department of Health for the sanitary sewer and water line improvements. C, coverage under the New York State DEC Speedies General Permit for stormwater discharges. D, the Town Board of the Town of Fishkill Sewer District approval. And E, the Town of Fishkill Zoning Board of Appeals sign variances. The next condition is regarding the stormwater maintenance agreement is required, that the applicant shall execute a formal maintenance agreement for stormwater management facilities. There are a number of other conditions as well. The project sponsor shall show all proposed landscaping on the final site development plans prior to the signature by the Planning Board Chair. It has very specific conditions and wording in connection with that, and I'm now on the beginning of the top of. For some reason, the numbering is off on this draft. It's let's see, it's the top
They're
of.
all page twos.
Yes, they're all
I'll
page.
fix that, Dominic, no worries.
No, my apologies
No
for that.
problem.
So, continuing on, it's actually page 4. The project sponsor has offered specific architectural building design details and features, specifically identifying materials, colors, and textures, as shown in the samples submitted to the board and in presentation drawings submitted at planning board meetings. The planning board accepted these materials, colors, and textures when considering this application. The plans and specifications submitted for issuance of a building permit shall incorporate these same previously offered design details and features. Project sponsor, number 5, the project sponsor and/or its successor shall remit a site inspection fee as required by Town Code Section 15097D, and the current fee schedule in the amount of $1,500 prior to the commencement of any construction. Number 6, the project sponsor shall reimburse the Town of Fishkill for all costs incurred by the town for the review of this site development plan and floodplain development permit proposal. Number 7, any changes or modifications which are deemed by the project sponsor necessary during the course of construction must be reviewed and approved by the planning board prior to implementation of such changes or modifications. And then the next page is final plan revisions. The owner's consent note shall be signed and dated by the owner. Number 9, the final site development plan shall submitted for the planning board chair's signature shall include a planning board approval block. And number 10, proof of satisfactory compliance with and/or resolution of any applicable concerns addressed in the review memorandum presented to the planning board by the town engineer dated August 1, 2022. There's also a limitation on amenities, accessory structures, and outdoor fixtures. The site development plan approval allows construction of only that what is shown on the plans identified. No amenities or accessory structures or outdoor fixtures, including but not limited to lighting, walls, mechanical units, dumpsters, may be constructed, placed, or erected, except as shown on the approved plans. This has a binding effect as well. It's a binding on the applicant and any successors in interest. There's a requirement that all fees are paid and escrow deposits are made. There is also a requirement regarding the Ocean State job lot for an easement to be granted by Ocean State job lot, the owner of the adjacent parcel, to the applicant for the extension of water and sewer lines to the property. The draft easement shall be submitted to the town engineer and the planning board attorney for their review and approval. Upon their approval, the easement shall be recorded in the Dutchess County Clerk's office and proof of same provided to the town. These are conditions 1 through 14, and all of those conditions have to be satisfied prior to the signing of the site plans. And then there's standard conditions beyond that, that the resolution shall lapse should a building permit not be obtained by the applicant within 1 year of the date of the final site development plan approval, and that any extension of the resolution must be submitted, a request rather, has to be submitted to the planning board according to the instructions contained in the resolution.
Thank you very much. One thing you might notice normally would have been on this page 4 where there was talk about inspection fees and such, is that there is no provision for a performance bond or a maintenance bond. And when Dominic, John, and I were reviewing the draft resolution, we agreed that it would be prudent to take that out, seeing as how the fire district is a public entity, which would only be resulting in more public funds being expended for that purpose. So, and being a public entity, I think we can have confidence that the improvements will be done to the satisfaction of the town.
Great job.
Yeah, I agree.
So, having gone through the resolution, are there any questions or comments from board members?
No.
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 Not for me.
And are you okay, John?
Yes.
All right. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the draft resolution of conditional final approval for the site development plan for the Rombout Fire District Station 2 as discussed tonight, and to authorize the chair to sign it?
So moved.
So moved.
And I'll second it because it's my district.
Wait a minute.
So it'll be Jody and Fred.
All
I think
right.
we have a good idea how the vote's going to go.
So Felix, wait a minute. Felix moved it, right?
No,
No.
I'm going to give it to Jody.
All right.
And Fred definitely seconded it.
All right. Jody moves it. Fred seconds it. Any further discussion about who moved it or seconded it? Or any other things?
No.
All right. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
I said it first.
Any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion passes 6-0. So now we will go to the draft resolution for the floodplain development permit for the Rombout Fire District, Station 2. Dominic, would you mind going through that one? That one's a little bit shorter.
It is, and I'll try to be even briefer if I may. This is draft number 2, dated August 31st, 2022. And once again, the first page goes through the procedural history of this, and as I noted previously, the negative declaration was adopted on October 14th, 2021. There are specific findings that begin on page 2, that the planning board has considered the effects of the proposed activities on the area of special flood hazard and fully considered all relevant supporting documentation submitted by the project sponsor, which documentation demonstrates and details the following. 1, the hydraulic analysis for the project was performed consistent with generally accepted methods and standards associated with floodplain engineering. The analysis revealed no calculatable change in the flood discharge as a consequence of the fill proposed for the placement in the area of special flood hazard. 2, the project has incorporated erosion and sediment control measures into the proposed plan consistent with the requirements of the applicable town code sections. Therefore, the resolution goes on to approve the floodplain development permit and includes as special conditions the following. 1, all work shall be conducted in accordance with the approved plan, specifications, and the stormwater pollution prevention plan. 2, prior to the commencement of any work on the site, the project sponsor shall obtain coverage under the New York State DEC Speedy's general permit for stormwater discharges, and at a minimum, New York State DOT approval for a temporary access drive into the site for the import of fill. 3, the work is limited to the placement of fill, grading, and site stabilization until all necessary permits and/or approvals have been obtained from any local and state agencies having jurisdiction, including but not limited to a New York State DOT highway work permit, special use permit, and final site development plan approval. The project sponsor shall employ the services of a licensed professional engineer to conduct periodic inspections during the course of all work within the area of special flood hazard, and said engineer shall, upon the completion of that work, certify to the town of Fishkill that the work's been conducted in full conformance with the terms and conditions outlined herein. 5, the project sponsor shall submit to the town of Fishkill as-built drawings to ensure that the structures and all final grading were completed in accordance with the design plans and specifications. 6, the town of Fishkill reserves the right to rescind or otherwise withdraw approval for this permit in the event that the project sponsor fails to conduct and/or complete the work required under this permit in accordance with the approved plans. 7, the planning board authorizes the town of Fishkill building inspector act on their behalf as local administrator going forward, and to conduct periodic inspections throughout the period of the placement of fill and site stabilization to monitor compliance with the terms of this permit.
Okay.
The one thing that I would note is that in connection with number 3, that the work is limited to a placement of fill, grading, and site stabilization until all necessary permits and their approvals have been obtained from any local or state agencies having jurisdiction, including but not limited to a New York State DOT highway work permit, a special use permit, and final site development plan approval. In thinking this through now that we're here before you, I'm not sure of the timing of the placement of fill and the need for a highway work permit as to whether or not what the sequence of those would be. And in addition to that, I don't believe that there's actually a special use permit involved with this project. So that was extraneous language that should be stricken from this draft.
So I might suggest that the DOT work permit might be appropriate in reference to the item just above it, where at least temporary approval from the DOT would be required to allow construction activity to be occurring, even this limited construction activity. And I believe that could probably be in the form of a letter because there's an existing paved access there, so I think that will serve sufficiently for their temporary access.
To be honest, what's really driving this is that the final site development plan approval.
Right.
But correct me if I'm wrong, the board just adopted the final site development plan approval, so I think actually this entire paragraph 3 could come out.
Okay.
Would be my recommendation, because it's saying that certain things can't occur until you get, but you got.
We got.
So.
All right, is the board okay with deleting condition 3 and then renumbering the following conditions?
Yes, that makes sense.
And that concludes my comments, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Yeah, and thanks for that update on that condition. Okay. Any other questions or comments from board members? I think that one was pretty straightforward.
No comments.
No. All right, would someone like to make a motion to approve the draft resolution for the floodplain development permit for the Roundabout Fire District Station 2 as discussed and revised tonight? And do I have to sign? I guess I have to sign that resolution.
Yes, well.
All right, and authorize the chair to sign it.
Mr. Chair, I will second that.
Nobody made a
Wait,
motion.
who said?
I did.
Oh, okay.
She said,
All right. All right, you guys are really having fun down there. Joni moved it, Fred seconds it. Any further discussion?
Thank you.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? That passes 6-0. All right. Well, thanks for all your hard work tonight, Larry.
Larry, thank you.
It's always a
Who was
pleasure.
out there doing surveying today?
Actually,
Was that for you?
I'm sorry?
Someone who was surveying.
That
was you guys?
That was actually a company that's working for us, but it's actually for a water line project along the road. So it's in conjunction with this, but it's not really the firehouse project.
Okay.
So, I have two quick administrative questions that might just help me expedite a couple things. The stormwater maintenance agreement, is there a standard template that you guys would want to see or that you have? I think in the past we've used a standard template. I'm not sure if that's continuing to be used.
Yes, if you send me an email tomorrow, I'll connect you with my partner, Steve Gaba, and we can get you rolling in the connection with that.
Got it. And then the second question is relative to the town board approval of the sewer connection. Is that just a letter request to the town board? Okay.
Yes.
Perfect. That's it.
That's it.
That is it. And hopefully, in the very near future, there'll be another project in the town of Fishkill that's built that you guys can say, we helped make that happen. Thank you very much.
Looking forward to it. Good luck.
Thank you.
Good luck, guys.
Thanks for all your good work on that.
And yours as well. Thank you.
All right. Take care. Thanks, gentlemen.
Thank the board for everything they did, and also waiving the fees, which I think the taxpayers will thank you as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Okay, we're doing very well here tonight.
Hey, be quiet.
Well, yeah, Anthony, I will leave it to your...
No pressure.
Your expert direction to take on this next share.
I don't know how we do it.
So this is the Fishkill Support Center of Jehovah's Witnesses Site Development Plan. I am recusing myself from any discussion or participation as I've done in past meetings, and I'll ask Anthony as vice chair to fill in as chair for this application. So I'll leave the meeting room, but I will be back for other business. And we actually will get to other business tonight. I can assure you of that. Don't hold your breath.
I'll read the description while John makes his way out of
I'll
the
walk
room
out
here.
as quickly as I can.
Board to review submission made by the applicant's representative on August 24th, 2022, draft negative declaration and draft resolution of preliminary and conditional final approval. And I'll just say at last month's planning board meeting, this board adopted the EAF Part 2 and Part 3 and authorized our consultants to prepare the draft negative declaration and draft resolution of preliminary and conditional final approval. So that's how we've got here tonight. Good evening, Mr. Heyer.
Good evening, Mr. Brochure, members of the board.
At this point, I'll ask you to briefly describe the submittal made to our board. In particular, well, the two key components were the noise study protocol and procedures and the bond estimates. Those were the two key items that were provided. And if there are any other items that should be brought to our attention, feel free to do so as well.
Sure, we'll do so. So plans haven't changed, obviously, from last submittals that we've done. It was the noise study was the primary, and then trying to get the fees set for the performance bond, maintenance bond, and inspection fees. So we have the estimates that were submitted and I understand reviewed by the consultants. And so then we're looking for whatever we need to do as far as approval for getting those bonds in place. But as far as the noise study and protocols, I'm going to let Mr. Bill Greeley speak to that because he's the expert on that subject.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Philip Greeley from Colliers Engineering and Design. So the protocol that we put together for the noise evaluation includes reference to the town standards, of course, and New York State DEC procedures for assessing and mitigating noise impacts. They spell out the type of measurements. In our protocol, we talk about specific measurements, equipment that has to be used to conform with that, and identify locations that would get representative sampling for the neighborhood that surrounds the property. The closest areas to the east, and then as we go further north away from where the activity centers are. The outline describes that there would be current conditions documented over a full week. So we get every day of the week to capture different activities, and that would be coordinated, of course, with the operations so that we are capturing what's occurring there. It may take longer than a week to collect that because you get, weather conditions, too windy or rain or something like that. So we've identified those areas for documenting the pre, and then procedures that would be similar for the post conditions. And standard sound level meter, a type 1 type meter that's specified in the DEC regulations. The data would be collected typically in 15-minute increments so that you're capturing that information. It's typically summarized in what's called an LEQ or equivalent, so that's what the human ear really reacts to. As specified in the DEC procedures, it's what's called an A-weighted measurement, which takes into account the different frequencies, et cetera. We've identified that if there's any impacts, that then there would be mitigation, of course, whether it be changing hours of operations or whatever else needs to be done, and that would be coordinated with the planning board. And then we would go back and do additional measurements if necessary, and I think those are kind of the key points that are spelled out.
Okay.
Happy to answer any questions if you have.
I think what I was going to do first was I was going to go to Mr. Bodendorf's memo, because I think he does talk about the items submitted, and then I'll ask Dominic for his thoughts on it, and then I did have some comments on then I'll come to the board for comments on the noise, because I did have a few. But John, I'll start with you.
Sure. Latest memo dated September 1st. The first comment is a carryover comment, just providing their final health department approval once they have it. The second comment, I probably should have deleted it before sending this memo out. It talks about the potential for setting up an escrow account to witness or be able to witness portions of the noise study, but after thinking about it, if and when the board adopts resolution of approval, there's going to be a site inspection, a fee associated with that, and it should be more than enough to cover this. So I would just strike that comment number 2. Third is just we mentioned that we reviewed the performance bond estimate, found it to be acceptable. And then the fourth, we did review the noise study protocol. We had no comments. We also asked, Dominic, did you get a chance to review it as well?
I did review and I'm happy to discuss it.
Okay. So that's the extent of our letter.
No, thank you. And I guess at this point, I'll ask Dominic what his thoughts are about the noise protocol, because I know we spent a pretty good amount of time trying to figure out how we were going to arrive at such a document, so I'd like your thoughts.
Yeah, this was done in response to a number of concerns that were raised by members of the public throughout the public hearing, public comment process regarding the potential for noise to be increasing nuisance or concern in connection with their enjoyment of their residential homes. And so I think it's actually would be helpful perhaps to go into this draft a little bit more, if I may. This is dated August 24th, 2022. And on the first page, under the section Current Conditions, Noise Level Documentation, the first thing that has to be pointed out is that the applicant has agreed to limit the hours of activities at the site to between 10 a.m. and 9 p.m. or dusk, whichever is earlier, in order to minimize any potential impacts on the surrounding area. And so that's happening with or without the noise protocol as well, because that's been a mitigation measure that's already been offered by the applicant. The idea behind this basically noise protocol is to take a baseline survey now when activities are occurring on the site, and then have that information so you would know like what the ambient noise levels are when activities are occurring. And then after full construction in the site is completed, to take a second level at that time to see whether or not there's been any significant change. So that's the concept behind this noise protocol. The technical aspects of the noise protocol, I think, are reasonable and sufficiently detailed. And so that there would be, for instance, there's typical peak activity periods in the 10 a.m. to 11 a.m., 12 p.m. to 1 p.m., and 5:30, 6 to 6:30 timeframes when activities would be occurring. There's also very specific information regarding the type of sound meter, and also the placement of where the sound would be recorded from. And that would be repeated on both times, so that wherever the sound is measured pre-construction would also be where the sound is measured afterwards as well. The receptor locations are a total of 3 that would be along the property lines, and the property lines closest to the residential dwellings located on High Ridge Court, along Ridgecrest Drive and Boulder Way, as well as Thornwood Court. And there was I believe a map attached, or there should have been a map attached, although I don't. Yeah.
There should have been, but we realized afterward that between our draft and our submittal, that map showing the locations was omitted, and it was past the middle. And
yeah, that was one of, that was like my first, that would certainly need to be part.
I have some copies.
Sure.
If you want to pass them out, that would be helpful, as long as it becomes part of the record, because I think, and again, we want an approximate location. I mean, we're not.
Roughly where the arrow is, the cursor is, that's where 2 of them will be. And then the other one will be up here on the north end of the property.
I'm sorry, could you do the first one?
First, they'll be right in this area here.
So that's like where the tree line is, but I think you said in your memo that you would be at certain distance from any, trees, because you don't want to block.
Correct, we would be on our side of the trees.
Right.
Yeah. That's what the map is, correct?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I think that answers the big question. Dominic, I don't know if you were.
Well, I just wanted to finish up by saying that, that the point of all this is that there would be a report that would be submitted to the planning board. And that would be submitted to the planning board within 3 months after completion of the facility. And that would provide both the pre-construction and post-construction noise analysis at that time, as well as a discussion as to whether or not any additional mitigation measures might be required. Those mitigation measures could be in a variety of different categories. It could be a further limitation on time if there was an issue in connection with noise, or it could be additional other actual physical noise mitigation measures depending on conditions that are shown at that time. And all of this drives back actually to Town Code Section 108, which deals with noise, and actually there's very specific standards there regarding like criteria for the town to consider as to whether something is a nuisance level noise or if it's just, neighborhood noise, for lack of a better term.
Right. Okay, thank you. I just want to go down the line with the board members, any comments on the noise study protocol or the bond estimates that were provided? And I'll start with Bob, I guess, if they had any questions or comments on those two items that were provided.
No.
Okay. Felix, I don't know.
Yeah, a couple quick things. I just, I'm looking at where the receptors are. They seem like they may be close to where your pavilions are going to be?
Yeah, so the positioning of those were to get kind of the closest residents and where the activities would be.
All right. And when we talk about the activities, right, and I know you gave specific times, so that would just be whatever they would normally be doing those days, right? Okay. I think that's important because we want to make sure that, just regular life is going on there so we can get a feel for what's actually happening. And then we can try to measure to see later on if anything's changed. I know we just talked about the, because I was looking at the unreasonable noise according to our, and I think everybody should look at that. It can get pretty detailed, and I wanted to ask Dominic at some point about that is, at what point is what's unreasonable noise? It gets very tough to actually, when I read it, it's not that simple because they talk about time and then they talk about, because just give an example, I'll make an example. Let's say there's something going on at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and you're making noises. That's considered unreasonable if the neighbors could hear it. It's almost like when you read the code, it's kind of hard to, I mean, everybody should look at the code. It's not that simple.
Well, it's not a bright line.
No,
and it's not
not
intended to be a bright line because it's supposed to, be able to cover a variety of different circumstances. But there are criteria that you have to evaluate as to whatever was an unreasonable noise. It might be helpful. If you've read them, then I don't need to read them. I don't want to take up anybody's time, but this is section 108.1, unreasonable noise, and there's actually 7 different separate criteria.
Yeah, just like I said, when I look at it,
excuse me,
it doesn't always seem to be exactly very clear.
So it would be one thing to take the measurement, but to know what, if it was a higher number, let's say, to know what the reason for that was, to determine whether or not it was truly unreasonable.
Yeah, and like I said, it just, I have a hard time trying to figure out that part of the code, because if you're making noise at 2:30 in the afternoon, even if the neighbors can hear it, I know we talked about that, Jody, I wouldn't consider that unreasonable, right? But when I look at the code, it's...
Well, what's going to help, I think, is the differential, or the potential for differential.
Okay, yeah, that'll be part of the mitigation, is what we're looking at.
Right, because, for instance, activities could occur on this site now.
Yes.
And if they didn't have this application before the board, then activities could occur on this site now, and certainly the residents would be entitled, if they felt that there was excessive noise, they could always complain to the town. It would become an enforcement issue as to whether or not there was unreasonable noise. And that becomes a code enforcement officer issue, but it doesn't come before this board.
Right.
What you're looking at and you're focused on is the differential, or the potential differential between pre-construction, post-construction, and whether or not there are mitigation measures that need to be imposed so that as part of your environmental review, because this all stems back to your environmental review, really. It's not so much a site plan review as it is your role as lead agency for seeker purposes.
Yeah, just like I said, I think that was that I kept looking at the code and trying to figure out what is unreasonable, and
Is there a certain decibel level?
They don't say something like that.
No, but there's not in the code.
Unreasonable noise if you don't have a decibel.
Well, the DEC does have some guidance in terms of seeker impacts regarding noise, and typically a change in decibel levels of like more than 5 dB,
Yep.
you know, is considered to be significant enough that warrants like further evaluation.
Right.
And I think that that's a key point of this, is to identify whether or not there's going to be a significant change.
Because noise, like anything, like a leaf blower blowing at 70 or 80 decibels at a certain distance is
Right.
considerably different from 40, 50 yards away and 100 yards away and 150 yards away. And
Right.
so-
And a more typical example would be like an HVAC unit on top of a
Yeah.
building, you know, is putting out a certain dB level, and then you can measure that over distance. That's been the challenge with this application is that we're really not, we're talking about, you know, human activity, not the running of a compressor unit.
But what this document does is it gives the planning board an opportunity to revisit and consider future
Correct.
mitigation. So that's really what we're going for here, I think.
Correct.
That just gives us this document gives us the protocol and the opening to evaluate.
The other alternative is like the board would have had to make a determination regarding noise now.
Yeah.
Based on what you know now, and then that would have been the end of the process. And then if there were any issues with noise in the future without this protocol in front of the board, then it would really only be a code enforcement issue, because the board wouldn't have any jurisdiction. This way, you're keeping some jurisdiction over this project. So to address the public's concerns, you had a significant level of public comment in connection with noise, and this is a way forward to make sure that their concerns are addressed.
I have a concern.
Go ahead.
Always. Since I'm very much involved with sports, all right? If no one's on the field, no matter
Fred,
what time.
Mike.
I'm very concerned with sport, you know. If no one's on the field, I don't care what time of day it is, all right? There's going to be no noise, all right? And what we've heard, the complaint from the start, was people out at 8 o'clock or 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock in the morning yelling, all right? And if you don't do the survey when they're out there actually playing, it's not going to make any difference. Because again, I didn't hear anything about machinery making noise. I mean, we never heard anything like that, all right? And the only thing we heard about is a truck backing up. God forbid, you know? Now we should remove all alarms for trucks so we run people over. And then I'm concerned with when they're going to do the survey, if, you know, no matter when it is, if the people aren't out there playing, all right? And then my other concern is, hey, guys, we're doing a survey this week.
Be quiet.
Be quiet.
So.
And I don't know how to get around it, all right? I really don't. But that, you know, are we wasting our time doing this?
So, just a couple of things. So, number one is we would document the activities, because we want to make sure that we're being representative of the conditions you described. In terms of coordinating and knowing when it's done, you know, when these measurements are done, some people may know that they're being done, but, you know, we try to be incognito when we do them, to be typical. You know, so
So you're saying
it's like anything
these are
else.
accompanied by a diary of sorts that indicate
Yeah, so
any
we would
major
make sure that
activities?
when they're being done, what activities are occurring. So I think we, you know, without getting into exact detail, we said we would document what activities were occurring at the time of the measurements. You know, it's the same thing, no matter what type of noise study you're doing. You know, if you're looking at truck noise, you want to make sure it's when the truck activity is there, so.
But you also can't control that a fire truck's coming down Brockway Road to somewhere
Correct.
else.
Or an ambulance.
And things like that, or even airplane flyovers, yeah, those are documented when the measurements are taken. And that's why you would usually look at, you know, 15-minute periods and multiple 15-minute periods.
Okay. Well, the only thing I can see is a real measure of whether there is not being noise is the public who lives there actually contacting the town and saying, there's the noise. All right, and again, I'm not saying, and some people can't hear anything, like myself, all right? And I know my wife, if I step on the floor, she hears me coming. So, I mean, I don't have an answer for you, but again, it's human nature.
Well, I think the mitigation is being accomplished.
saying-
I think, no, I think the
operation.
mitigation is there, but again, I don't understand the, you know,
And I think the other point, and Mr. Cadesco already mentioned it, while the town regulations don't get to specific levels, the DEC document that we refer to, provides guidance. What is a significant increase, and when we're doing that comparison of conditions.
yeah, but you've already said you're not going to use any PA systems out there, all right? You're not going to have, except for maybe the 1 or 2 times a year where you let everybody know you're doing your, I don't remember what you call it, but and I could see you having a PA system at that point in time because you're communicating with, 100 people or so, but.
You're accumulating the stuff at the receptor points? Is that where you're getting so you have nothing in the adjacent development?
No.
The receptor points would be at basically the property line, which is the requirement to look at.
Okay.
That's the reason for picking those, yes.
I understand what you're saying, and it's true, because you're going to have times when the defoliation is going to make sounds travel quicker. It's just some days you can hear things clear as a bell or not, so it is going to be pretty tough to kind of say, and like I said, I don't know, you're going to definitely have people calling.
And I think the time of year matters, and that was one of the comments I had. We talk about 3 months after, but, if one's done in the summer and one's done in the winter, the leaves on the tree, there's a lot of things that affect what reaches a receptor. And so, if the first one's done, so I don't know if this document didn't really get into that, but but like April to October would be like a prime time to do it. That would be like, at least in my mind, I'm not a noise analyst, but that would be the season where the leaves would be on the tree, it'd be a similar, and people would be outside.
Right. Yeah, I think 2 things. Number one, when we talked about it 3 months, we wanted to make sure that there was kind of that it wasn't a long period of time before we provided it, number one.
Yeah, we wouldn't want the post condition to be, we took it, in January. It was really quiet.
And for what it's worth in trying to decide about when to do the studies, we typically do not keep our fields open year-round, simply because of the damage that can occur to it during the winter time when it's wetter, et cetera.
Spring.
Exactly. So you go usually end of April, beginning of May is when we open our fields at all of our facilities that we have in the Hudson Valley, and then we shut them down end of October, beginning of November for the year.
So I don't know if this document may benefit from something along those lines to say that, both the current condition and the post are taken within those same windows of time.
And when you're saying closing down the fields, you're just talking about the sports field.
Just the sports field.
Yeah, because there's still people are going to walk out to the pavilions, all
Absolutely.
year round.
Yeah.
Weather, snow permitting, but they can put on snowshoes too and
Correct.
do exercise.
The time of month was the one big question I had outside of the figure which you provided, so I don't know, does anybody else on the board have any questions about the noise or the bond?
No.
I did agree with John's recommendation on the estimates. I think those look good, and he added the site inspection fee in his memo as well of $25,000. So we were given the 2 numbers, and the site inspection fee was also, I think, recommended by John of $25,000, so. All right, so are there any other comments from the board? All right.
Are we just talking noise now?
I was just talking about the comments on the items submitted tonight, because I think the next thing I'm going to get into is the negative declaration. So I just kind of want to make sure we're done here, because I think that carries us off over to the next part, unless procedurally I'm missing something, Dominic, or I think that's the next logical step here. So last call, I guess.
Yeah. I just had 2 really quick ones before we get to the next part. I know there've been some questions, concerns about building close to the cap. Just want to know if there's any guidance on how close you can build to that? Is there anything on that?
Yeah, so the environmental easement that's in place for that portion of the property requires us to, if we're going to do anything within that, we have to pre-notify DEC.
Okay.
DEC has to approve the work plan. The work plan, we've provided copies previously to the board. We've also, February, we contacted DEC about this to get them to approve the process, that they're aware of it, they're reviewing it, we're waiting for their response on that. But in that site management plan and that easement, there are very specific requirements about where we're at and air monitoring and sampling that have to take place to specific criteria that was approved previously by the DEC when the brownfield cleanup was done. So, and then as far as where, they just restrict what types of things can be done in different parts of the site. And the area that we're using, we can build recreation fields, we can build commercial facilities, and I believe it's also a residential component are allowed. But again, when you're doing the work, there's the air monitoring, the sampling that has to be done, hired out. We don't do that ourselves, to make sure that everyone is protected, the site is not being disturbed, and everything's being maintained to contain the brownfield cleanup.
Okay.
Good. All good?
Good, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I think we'll move on to the negative declaration, and is that Dominic that's gonna, or John? John.
Yeah, he wrote it.
Well, then we'll let him read it.
Okay, reading draft number 2 dated September 1st, 2022. The first page is really just a description of the action and description of the location. I'm not going to read that. I think we're all pretty familiar with where it is and what they're proposing to do. So on the second page, under reasons for supporting this determination, the planning board makes the following findings supporting and substantiating this determination. 1, the proposed action will disturb approximately 16 acres within the 57.34 acre project site. Although 6.25 acres of the developed site will be impervious, the remaining 51.09 acres, or approximately 89.11%, will be pervious area consisting of lawn, landscaped area, gravel area, and existing vegetation, including a wetland. Portions of the project site have already been disturbed by the previously completed construction of a building and related utilities. A stormwater pollution prevention plan has been submitted for the proposed project. The proposed site development has been situated to maintain existing drainage patterns where possible. The plans include provisions for water quantity and quality control in conformance with current stormwater regulations. The stormwater management measures indicated on the plans and incorporated into the project design include both temporary and permanent measures to address water quantity, quality, and erosion and sediment control. Also, areas disturbed for development that do not contain buildings and other impervious area will be stabilized as lawn and landscaped areas, which further prevents sedimentation. Properly implemented, the proposed measures reduce the likelihood of any adverse impacts occurring. 2, the project site includes a portion of a stream which would not be impacted by the proposed project. As noted above, preliminary SWIP has been submitted for the proposed development. The proposed site development has been situated to maintain existing drainage patterns where possible. This repeats a lot of the same language, so I'm just going to skip to number 3. Notation is included on the existing conditions and demolition plan that stating that tree clearing shall only occur between October 15th and March 31st due to potential Indiana bat roosting areas. 4, the proposed action is located approximately 1.5 miles from the Newburgh Beacon Bridge, which is a New York designated scenic road. Taking into consideration the height of the buildings and surroundings, it is unlikely that the site would be visible. 5, the proposed action is located in an area that was identified as potentially sensitive for archaeological sites in the New York State Historic Preservation Office inventory, but the applicant received a letter from State Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation dated September 3rd, 2021, stating that no properties, including archaeological and/or historic resources, will be impacted. 6, the proposed action will result in an increase in noise pollution during the construction phase. However, this will be mitigated by the fact that construction will be temporary. All work will follow requirements of the town zoning code, chapter 108, noise, section 3, unlawful acts, including adhering to working hours between 7 a.m. and 8 p.m. In addition, the applicant provided a noise study protocol and procedures dated August 19, 2022, that was deemed acceptable by the planning board. 7, the proposed action includes an environmental area that was fully remediated and signed off by DEC in December of 2014, and the applicant is not proposing any disturbance to said area. 8, the proposed action will not result in any impacts on geological features, flooding, or groundwater, air, agricultural, aesthetic, open spaces and recreation, and energy resources, or transportation systems, or human health. And those are all the supporting reasons.
Yeah, and I'd like to go back to a couple of them, in particular, number 4, the visual impact. The last sentence says, it's unlikely the site would be visible. I'd like to amend that, because I think potentially it is visible, to say it's, I don't know if I feel comfortable with that. Maybe I'd rather say that it won't create an adverse visual impact to the New York State designated scenic road.
Okay.
Again, it's wordsmithing, but I think I'd feel more comfortable with that. And I don't know if the board disagrees with that.
Anthony, could you just repeat what you said one more time for me, please?
I would say it's unlikely that it would create an adverse visual impact to the New York State designated scenic road. And then item number 6, I know we spent enough time about it. This does say that the noise study and protocol and procedures was deemed acceptable. I did have the one comment that I wanted to see updated as to the time of year. Other than that, was the board comfortable with that statement? Or we could say dated August 19, 2022 as discussed at the, I don't know, but I think we want to make.
Or as amended.
As amended, but I think we did talk about, at least that. I don't know if there was anything else that should be included.
What if we just add in after dated August 19, 2022, and as amended during discussions at the September 8th planning board meeting?
I think that would, that would work. Any, good? And then the signatory at the bottom, you have John Cantor, probably one of them.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I noticed that after.
He could sign it. I'm okay. I'm okay with him signing it. Did the board members have any other items in the negative declaration that they wanted to see amended?
No, Mr. Chairman.
All right, so with that, I will ask the board if somebody would like a motion to adopt the negative declaration for the Fishkill Support Center of Jehovah's Witnesses Site Development Plan, draft number 2, dated September 1st, 2022, as discussed and amended at tonight's meeting, and to authorize the chair to sign.
So moved.
Felix moved it. Do I have a second?
Second.
Jody, second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries 5-0.
Is there one abstention because he's on?
Yes,
Oh, one
okay.
abstention.
That's okay. Thank you.
Good catch. Okay, so I think that's now, we've taken care of that. I'd like to turn our attention to the draft resolution of preliminary and conditional final site development plan approval. At a minimum, I'd like to go through the resolution tonight to discuss the contents, and in particular, I'm interested in going through the conditions. I'd like to get the board's thoughts on those conditions, and I think it's also an opportunity for the applicant to provide their input as well as we go through this. And at the end of the review of that, I'd I'd like to discuss with our consultants and the board whether we believe we have enough to consider adoption of that document tonight. But I think at the very least, we should have that discussion. So I'm going to, I guess, Dominic, is that a reasonable approach to take at this point?
Certainly.
All right. Any thoughts from the board on that? All right, Dominic, turn it to you, and we can go through the
Sure, thank you. We did go ahead and prepare this draft resolution for the board to review. This is a 10-page resolution, and it follows the board's standard format. The first 2 pages are the recitation of the project and as well as its procedural status. The findings begin at the top of page 3. There's a finding by the planning board that the board has considered the proposed location of main and accessory buildings on the site. This is a standard condition of finding, rather, that has been mentioned in connection with other site development plan reviews. So given the lateness of the hour, I'm not going to read the entire thing. The next finding is in connection with the Dutchess County Department of Planning and Development. The application did not meet the requirements for referral, but it was referred anyway on December 14th for informal comments, and the Dutchess County Department of Planning and Development did provide their informal comments on January 3rd, indicating in their response that the application was exempt, but they provided some informal comments for given due consideration. The project that the stormwater plan for the project has been reviewed and meets the requirements of the Town of Fishkill Town Code Chapter 130. The next finding is in connection with the fact that the application is not subject to the Aquifer Protection Overlay Town Code sections, and that a certificate of appropriateness for historic structures and site regulation is also not required. The specific conditions begin on page 4. And the first one is that in connection with outside agency approvals are required. Those approvals include the Dutchess County Department of Health for the sanitary sewer and water line improvements and coverage under the New York State DEC Speedy's general permit for stormwater. Number 2 is a stormwater maintenance agreement shall be required. Number 3 is a lot consolidation plan is also required, so that the 2 tax lots that comprise the site now would be consolidated into 1. In connection with that also is a deed of merger is required, so that both the plat filing with the county clerk's office will match up with the title record for the deeds as well. A performance bond is required. This one was based on an estimate submitted by the applicant in the amount of $3,771,000, $982.37. Since 7th grade, I've been getting that wrong. Whenever I read, I never get right where to say the actual dollars. So, and but in any event, that is the amount that's been reviewed and included in the resolution as recommended by the planning board engineer. A maintenance bond is also required, according to the resolution, in the amount of $229,000, and this is in connection with the latent landscaping. There's an inspection fee required of $25,000. The next section, beginning on page 6, it requires that the applicant shall strictly comply with all of the mitigation measures in the seeker negative declaration adopted by the planning board tonight. And then secondly, that a noise study shall be performed both pre and post-construction to evaluate the effectiveness of noise mitigation measures for exterior sports fields and courts as described in the document Noise Study Protocol and Procedures, submitted by the applicant and approved by the planning board, and then that's left blank. The planning board reserves the right to require the applicant and/or its successors in interest to make or cause adjustments to be made in hours of operation or additional noise mitigation measures in the event that the comparison between pre- and post-construction noise levels for the sports field and courts shows noise levels constitute unreasonable noise pursuant to the criteria set forth in Chapter 108, Noise of the Town of Fishkill Town Code. It goes on, final plan revisions that the owner's consent note shall be signed, and there's also a planning board approval block added to the plans. There's a requirement that all fees and escrow deposits are made. And then there's also very specific limitations of use, and this has 4 sections to it. This is 13 through 16 on the top of page 7. And then this approval is for the construction of an office building, maintenance building, demolition of the existing warehouse, and reconstructing it as a combined recreation storage building, together with related amenities as shown on the site development plan. And the scope and contour of the project is described on the site development plans enumerated below. This site development plan approval shall serve as the outer limit of the activities that can be carried out on the site without amended approval being sought and granted. Should other uses or site improvements be proposed in the future, then the applicant shall be required to return to the planning board for amended site development plan approval. Number 14, 246 parking spaces are shown on the site development plans, of which 98 are land banked, thus allowing for 148 parking spaces to be constructed now. Should the applicant desire to construct any or all of the land-based parking spaces in the future, then the applicant shall be required to seek approval from the planning board prior to construction. 15, hours of operation for exterior sport facilities. Use of the multi-purpose field and exterior sport courts shall be limited to between 10 a.m. and 9 p.m. or dusk, whichever is earlier. 16, use of grassy field within the delineated environmental easement. No active sports or events are allowed in the grassy field within the delineated environmental easement on the site. This area is reserved for walking, running paths, and other passive activities only. There's a limitation on amenities, accessory structures, and outdoor fixtures, which is also a standard condition. This has a binding effect on the applicant and any successors in interest. And also there's a requirement regarding landscaping and screening, lighting, and architectural design and details that have to be developed according to the code, section 15039, that all exterior lighting shown on the approved site development plan and special permit plan, actually we should strike special permit plan because there's no special permit in connection with this, shall be directed away or shielded from adjoining streets or properties and shall not cause any objectionable glare observable from such streets or properties. The planning board reserves the right to require the applicant and/or its successor in interest to make or cause adjustments to be made after installation in exterior lighting in the event that is determined by the planning board that such exterior lighting is causing objectionable glare visible from off-site. All landscaping and screening shown on the approved site plan shall be installed prior to the issuance of certificate of occupancy or a certificate of completion. Yeah. And that the applicant shall show proof of fulfillment of conditions 1 through 20, and that this approval resolution would expire within 1 year of the date of the final site development plan approval, and that extensions, requests for extensions rather, should be made in writing according to the requirements of the resolution.
Okay, thank you. I did have a question about number 9, the noise study. You had a line here that said noise study protocol and procedures submitted by the applicant and approved by the planning board on. We didn't necessarily approve it. Is that a motion that this board should take to formally make an approval? I mean, the noise, it's not really something that's approved. It's not a...
I would say that it was approved as part of your negative declaration. Because it's basically an attachment to the negative declaration at this point. I don't think that you need a separate motion to approve the noise protocol.
I didn't think so. I just want to make sure that that's...
Yeah.
Yeah. So we would just reword that.
And I would say included by the planning board as part of its negative declaration adopted on September 8th.
And I guess as amended or as...
Correct, tracking the language of the negative declaration, if you will.
Okay. I'm going to ask the board, do they have any other comments or questions on the resolution? Items that they would like to see discussed or potentially altered?
I have a quick one. I see the hours of operation for the exterior sports field. Do we have any thoughts on hours of operations for the pavilions? Or is that going to be just that they can use it anytime? I don't know. I'm asking, how do they use the pavilions now? The pavilion that's there now?
So typically at our facilities, either 9 or 10 o'clock at night, at our other facilities, those pavilions get shut down.
Okay.
Just because we don't want activities all night long happening out there, so.
So would those hours apply to the?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So that should just be added to the?
Can we add that in somehow? I'm asking the board because
I think it should be added to it.
Because this way, at least the public will know that, you're not gonna, I mean, I know you're saying you're closing it, I don't dispute that, but.
Or maybe this has to become 16, because 15 is really for the sports facilities, so this, I don't know if that's.
Unless you add the pavilions to it.
Yeah, I mean, we could add the pavilions too, I mean.
I don't know.
I was just gonna suggest that maybe we add it as another,
Okay.
simply because, at least from the way we look at it, and the board's decision, that the noise levels at the sports courts are gonna be much louder than the noise levels at a pavilion where somebody's barbecuing and sitting there and eating a meal, or.
The only thing I would argue against that is only that the pavilions are right on the lines next to the.
Only one of them is, the north pavilion, and that one does not have any lighting in it. And the reason for that was, again, so there would be no late activities there. The ones that are down right next to the railroad track, they have some like a ceiling fan with a light.
Right,
for that, like space
That's the one
lighting.
that's already existing.
Pardon me?
Is that the one that's already there?
We don't have any pavilions existing.
Well, there was one area that you told, when we first walked it was like, it went down a little bit.
Oh, yeah, down the block. So
Yes.
that's the area by the railroad track.
Right, that one, yeah, that's
Yeah,
fine.
Yeah.
I think that one's fine. But
And the
then
ones
there's
to the
one in
north, we could put a written limitation if you'd like. Again,
Okay.
it's gonna be, there's no lighting there, so.
Right, okay.
It'll be whenever it gets dark, but, yeah.
So the end result is item 16 for the.
What are going to be the hours, if you don't mind me asking?
Yes.
I did not hear in the resolution anything about I didn't hear anything in the resolution about giving the right-of-way to the future trail. Am I correct?
It's not in there, but it is on the site plan that's being.
I
approved
understand
by
that,
this.
but I'm asking,
Yeah.
should it be there or not be there?
All right, let's do it one at a time. Can we do 16
Yeah, finish
first?
the nice one
Yeah, let's do that one, and then we can jump on
Yeah,
to Fred's.
I thought the question
Yeah.
was. So we're adding an item after number 15 about hours of operation for the pavilions, and we're using the 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. or dusk, whichever is earlier.
Is that okay by you?
Is that for all the pavilions, or just the one that's up north next to the residential?
All of them, I would envision all of them.
Because that means, in December, somebody wants to go out there and sit, they won't be able to go out there past 4:30, 4:45. And it's so far away from the
You're
residential.
talking about the one that's down, right?
Correct, the one that's way down,
Yeah, yeah,
correct.
that
The
one.
ones to the north I can understand. So like,
Yeah,
as shown on here, the one
Sure.
right up here. And that's why, again, we have put in our commitments, well, at least what we've shown on the site plan and what we put in our letter in July, that there would be no lighting up at that one at all, so that it would not be used late at night.
Right.
But the ones that are down over here, and these are down in the hole, you've got this whole ridge here, plus you're gonna have the mound right here, to have people sitting down there talking.
Yeah, I'm not concerned
Yeah.
about that one at all. Now, isn't there another one on this end also? On the,
No, there's the two right here, and then there's the 3 or 4 right here, I think. But that's it, there's nothing
I
along
thought,
here.
I thought when we walked it, that you guys had pointed out one spot over there that there might be, no?
No.
Okay. All right, I'm mistaken then. Okay.
I mean, it'd be cleaner to have a single time tied to all of them. I mean,
Because then you're gonna have to call out locations and you're,
then we're gonna have to.
Yeah.
I think the biggest problem you had was the noise that people were talking about, all right? And they really didn't mind, well, where the sports were. But how can you limit people from using facilities, it's all going to be walking, getting together at the pavilions? I mean, I think that's an overgrab of, limiting the time.
Would the board be willing to entertain hours of operation for northern pavilions, 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. or dusk, whichever is earlier, and then hours of operation for the western pavilion? I mean, we're gonna have to, trying to, I'd like some, yeah.
It'd be like telling somebody can't go on your deck.
that's pretty much what you're doing.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think that's what we're doing.
So is that the,
I mean, I'm fine with whatever. I just put it out there because there was hours of operations for the sports facility, but there's nothing for the pavilion, so. And, I was just concerned that that one's at least towards the borderline, so.
if it makes the board more comfortable, we can add one for the northern pavilions, 10 a.m., between 10 a.m. and 9 p.m. or dusk, whichever is earlier, and then hours of operation for the western pavilions to be 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., 7 p.m. I mean,
If there's going to be a potential trail going by that property, which is a public trail, all right, where people can go on at any time unless the town closes it somehow, all right? There's supposed to be a walkway going all the way through, all right? And it's adjacent to this. And I can't see eliminating, limiting people's ability to walk the property anywhere, all right? And that's what you're basically doing.
I'm not asking any limits on walking. I just asked about the pavilion. That's all I'm asking about.
So,
All right, but if the lights are out in the pavilion, again, people walk out there, who's enforcing this? I mean, you're really enforcing the sports area. You really do. You limited it. They wanted it earlier, all right?
So what is your suggestion for the resolution? I'm trying to, I understand where we're going, but I mean, I hear, please throw a suggestion out there.
My suggestion is just leave it for the sports area.
Is that what the rest of the board feels?
My suggestion. Couple want to walk out there, let them walk out there. All right? If they're walking out there with a flashlight, they're walking out there with a flashlight. They want to do it by the starlight, and it's a beautiful, the moon is out and it's really bright. You're preventing them from walking out there. And you can't prevent them, what are you doing?
So your suggestion is basically not even adding a number, just leave the sports facilities and not add any?
Correct. I mean, if there's no, even the North Pavilion, if somebody wants to walk out there, there's a beautiful moonlight, after 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock and a big, we have that big moon, and somebody wants to take a walk with the mosquitoes, let them take a walk. I mean, how's it affecting them? How's it affecting anything?
Well, I would argue this, that pavilion could have 25 people there. How about 25 people walk at 12 o'clock at night out there and start making noise? Is that okay, Fred?
but I would say from an applicant standpoint, we would not allow that.
I know, no, I'm just,
at night,
and this
so,
is why
yeah.
I'm trying to,
Yeah.
I mean,
because I think
It was a concern, activities at
that's
odd
all,
hours.
because that's one of the, concerns that they're having.
So maybe then let's just, how about we add an item for the northern pavilion
Yeah,
only,
alone.
and then make no mention of the other ones?
I would be
and just-
fine with that.
Because the northern one is closer to the property
And
line.
that's the one I was concerned about, that's it.
I'll pull the board. Is everybody on board with that? Adding one for the northern pavilion only hours?
Well, go ahead. You gonna say something?
May I ask one question on that?
Sure.
And I'm fine with that approach. Could we suggest that because it's a pavilion setup and it is not a sports field setup, that it just be a straight 10 to 9?
Sure.
Because
I'd be fine
again,
with that.
November, December, February, it's dark really early, and yet people might be out there wanting to grill something, sit, look at the stars.
That's
I'm fine with
fine
that.
with me. Is that good with the board? I'm hearing no.
Bob? Is that okay?
Mike, it's like I said, it's kind of hard to visualize, you know. I understand what you're trying to say about it has to be like decorum. It's like somebody going out on their deck and start screaming and hollering at 2 o'clock in the morning. I mean, you're hoping that's not going to happen. But I guess we have to have the same thing happen here. I mean,
That'll fall under the noise
you
ordinance.
guys are going to have to police it.
That's the police.
So you'd be good neighbors, just like you hope anybody else would be next to you. I think that's the only thing you
10
can
to
do.
9 is,
Okay.
Yeah, Bob, you just hit the nail on the head for me, because that's exactly what I was going to say. Where do you draw the line between telling someone what they can and cannot do on their property? Occasionally, how often is that going to happen where perhaps we get 15 people that go out to a pavilion at 12 o'clock at night? And it would be a situation where somebody would end up calling the police and they would get dispersed. I think I kind of agree with Fred where we're kind of putting so many constraints on it. I get it on the field with the sports, but when we start talking about pavilions and everything else, I'm not really sure.
so the applicant made a suggestion of 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. for the pavilion. I mean, or we just, nothing at all? I'm fine with nothing at all. What's the board's?
Maybe perhaps poll the board.
Bob? I hear nothing. He's with it. Felix? I mean,
You know
come on.
what?
I mean,
I'll stop, all right.
come on.
Are you okay, Anthony?
No, I'm
It's
trying to
okay.
get input from the board, and, we're getting input, but we're not landing anywhere. And
All right,
it's-
you
it's a
know what,
little-
then,
And I'm not directing it at anybody, but,
I'm fine with whatever the board wants to do. I put it out there
No,
as a suggestion.
your suggestion was fine. It's,
Okay.
I'm trying to pull the board, and
And yeah, I gave you my input, which was, I just let it be. Do the sports area, all right, and let the rest of it be.
I'll agree with Fred.
Okay,
So
then
I'm
we'll leave
hearing-
it at that.
I'm hearing, we're leaving,
Okay, we'll leave it at that then.
okay? All right.
Get you next on your list.
Any other questions from the board?
No.
Is this board comfortable entertaining the resolution tonight?
Well, I asked my question.
Oh, yeah, right.
Could you repeat it? It's been a little while.
You would like me to repeat it?
Yes, please.
Okay. There's a future entrance, that doesn't exist yet, but there's a future entrance to a public, what do we call it? Right-of-way, walkway, trail, a public trail.
Yes.
And it's not in any of the resolution. All right? It is on the site plan, but it's not in the resolution. All right? We've indicated where it's going to open. We don't exactly know where it's going to be overall, because somebody has to construct it. The walkway, right now it's grass, correct?
Yeah,
Or
grass
whatever
and
it
trees,
is.
grass and trees.
Where grass and trees,
rocks.
so.
Yeah,
But should it not be in the resolution that this is,
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think the applicant isn't proposing to do this work unless I'm
but it's on their
mistaken.
property?
We were asked to provide an easement, and that's what we've shown on the site plan.
Yeah, okay.
Is that sufficient?
Yes. Yes, it would be,
My
because
mouth shut.
they're not constructing it, so they've shown the area where it can go, but it's going to be up to others to actually do it.
All right.
within that area that's shown on the plan.
Okay, as long as that's sufficient with, that doesn't have to be in the resolution, I have no problem with it.
No, sir.
Good? Okay. Is the board ready to entertain adopting the resolution this evening?
Mr. Broder, sorry to interrupt. We feel compelled to mention, I had two notes on this, but we feel compelled especially on one. One is I think is just a proofing situation, but we actually think that there should be another condition added because it's something that we agreed to with our neighbors, and that was that the sports fields would not be put into use until the building shells were completed and the mound was constructed. So we feel, I mean, good faith, we committed to that. It should be in there.
Yeah.
I think there's unanimous support.
That would be on,
And I even have some
that would be a
suggested
new
language.
paragraph 17 on limitations of use.
Yeah.
You know, that what, and I.
Thank you for reminding us.
Beth was saying that, you know, if you could repeat that so that,
Sure.
that Debbie could take it down.
So I just took from what we had in our July 27th letter, use of exterior multi-use field, tennis court, basketball court, and volleyball court will be prohibited until building shells and earthen berm are constructed.
Where's the horseshoe clause?
Thank you.
Can't believe we added another condition. And then,
You said there was a second?
and then the second was just, and I think it's just a proofing or whatnot, or maybe I don't understand the resolution, but in the underlined bold on page 8, where it says fulfillment of conditions numbered 1 through 20 need to be met before the signing of the site plan, I think that should actually be 1 through 7 and the pre-construction aspect of condition 9, because some of those conditions are post-construction, like showing the landscaping was completed, et cetera, so.
And the limitations on use, of course.
Exactly.
You know.
Yeah.
I'll fix that, no worries.
Okay.
We just didn't want there to be a conundrum later on, a chicken egg situation, you know, so.
Got it, thank you.
Yeah. That was all the comments we had. Thank you.
Okay. That's good, thank you. So again, to the board, is the board comfortable entertaining the resolution this evening?
As amended?
Well, we'll talk about that in the motion itself, but I'm asking a general question to the board.
Yes.
Okay.
I think I'm fine.
Okay. Any comments from our consultants on that approach, or any?
No, I think the board would be in a position to consider the resolution tonight. There's no additional materials or submissions that are expected of the applicant that the board would need to review prior to considering it further.
Okay, so would someone like to make a motion to adopt the resolution of preliminary and conditional final site development plan approval for Fishkill Support Center of Jehovah's Witnesses, draft number 3, dated September 1st, 2022, as amended at tonight's planning board meeting, and to authorize the chair to sign?
So moved.
Felix moves. Do I have a second?
Second.
Bob seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstained, we have John. And so the motion carries 5-0. Yep. Right.
Correct.
We're good. Yep. Okay. Very good.
Thank you all very, very much. I know
Thank
you.
a lot of work and review has gone into this.
Yes.
A lot of your time, and we appreciate very much all that you've done, so thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the time you put into coming to this session.
No, that was great.
Thank you.
Night.
Well done.
The next thing up is, so do I go out? Do I go out there?
No.
No,
I thought we
you
had it
you
in
would
like
leave,
10
you would leave the room. for
So
your-
do I leave- do I
Well-
leave the room? and have-
Good night, Phil, thank you.
If he does have anything else.
Well, we could, yeah, I mean,
'Cause
I can ask. So the next item is the Healy item, and I believe Jody's going to recuse herself. Is there any reason for her to stay, or any other discussion after that?
There is other discussion.
Yeah, beyond the Healy item.
Yeah, and
Okay.
actually, maybe we could do, assuming we can guarantee ourselves that we'll get through it, maybe we could do a couple of other things before we do the Healy resolution, and then let Jody leave.
Okay, I just don't know where I'm supposed to be.
Right here.
Thank you, Fred.
Somebody brings it up.
Not sure.
Well, let me, hopefully we'll get Felix back quickly. So, there were a couple of other things besides Healy that I did want to talk about briefly. One is more of a reporting thing, so maybe I'll do that first. So this is the Comprehensive Plan Committee, kind of a quick update. So Felix can catch up on this later, but so the committee has actually been moving along, doing a lot of work. The committee met twice in June and evaluated the results of the public survey that was done. And that was really interesting, and so there are a lot of really good findings and results of that survey that will be coming out pretty soon. The committee also will be soon setting up a webpage on the town's website with things like the survey results and meeting summaries and other documents and materials. The main thing right now that the committee's been working on pretty solidly is kind of a whole draft new plan, sort of following the format of the 2009 plan, but quite a bit of updating and revisiting goals and objectives, so we're working on that quite a bit these days. We finally had 2 in-person meetings at Town Hall in July, and we have a committee meeting coming up next Wednesday, September 14th. And the committee's also considering setting up an informal public open house. No date yet, but that will probably be in early October.
Before our next meeting, our next planning board meeting, or?
Probably so, yes. Probably.
No, I was just wondering if we'd have another opportunity to advertise it, so to speak, before our...
Well, there's going to have to be a whole advertising blitz to get people out, yeah, so...
Okay.
We have 2 meetings, one this Wednesday and 2 Wednesdays after that. Whatever
Right.
Wednesday, whatever that date is.
Right, yeah, something like September 27th or something like that.
I believe it's the 27th, is
Yeah.
the second meeting.
13th in October.
Yeah.
All right.
This month?
So,
Yes.
but likely the open house would be before our October 13th meeting, but just like with the survey, a lot of the committee members actually went out and did a lot of legwork to do kind of publicity and advertising. So we'll do the same thing for the open house. But that's something that I'd certainly encourage people out there listening to this to come and participate in the update. Certainly, planning board members should try to come if you're available, but we'll have announcements about that coming up, so there will be a lot more information, but it'll be an opportunity for the committee to present the survey results really in a fair amount of detail, because there are some really interesting findings from that. Also, some opportunities to do kind of a more general presentation of where we are with the whole plan update and see where the rest of the timeline is going to take us. So I think that's pretty much it. Fred, do you have anything you want to add?
No, we're just aiming to try and get it done before the end of the year.
Yeah.
And that's a target date. It doesn't mean we're going to do it. I mean, it is a lot of work.
Yeah, there's a lot left to be done, for sure, yes.
No, and thank you guys for being part of that, and thanks to all the volunteers as well who are part of that committee.
Yeah, it's very interesting. The next thing I wanted to talk about briefly, and we finally have had a chance to talk about this, is the length of planning board meetings. So congratulations that we have actually been able to get through the meeting and talk about other business a little bit tonight. It's been a long time since we've been able to do that. So, you know, I've been talking to people and some of the individual board members and thinking about possible solutions to these long, late-night meetings. There's a good chance that it may resolve itself. Because it looks like, I mean, we're getting through a lot of the larger projects that we've been working on. There's still a couple other big ones out there, but, you know, we're whittling it down. And so, I mean, I wouldn't want to change the way we're doing things at this point. We should definitely wait and see how things go. But there, you know, there are options that we've talked about in the past. I mean, not a very well-received idea, but the board could always go to a second meeting if needed in a month where there was a lot of things going on. But that's never a very popular approach. And I know some of the members I've talked to did not like that idea. Other options, which we've already sort of been implementing, are having a very set time limit on the meetings of ending at 11. We've been trying to implement that, and a couple of times I know we've gone a little bit over recently just because of the way the agenda goes, and you don't want to kind of stop right in the middle of something important. And another idea has been limiting the number of agenda items, but that seems a little bit difficult and awkward because it's not really just the number, it's the type of applications you're dealing with. So you may get 3 very easy, quick agenda items, and you may get one all of a sudden, as an example, the one that you guys just did, which takes a lot longer to get through. So it's the numbers of agenda items really, I don't think, is necessarily going to be a solution. But anyway, I just wanted to bring it up and see if members had any thoughts, you know, of where we may be going as a board with late meetings and,
John, you know, we say to the public, and really the biggest hang-up we have is when we have the public come in and give their comments. And we want to hear their comments. But just as we did today with the Johnson, we didn't hear anything new for 3 meetings, all right? They covered everything they wanted to cover, except for the bats, all right? Which we have no, you know, the bats are already taken care of, all right? We didn't hear anything new for the last 2 meetings. And we left it open because we wanted to hear about the well, all right? And we wanted to hear about the other thing. But the public didn't say anything new to us. And I don't know, and even the people who spoke today, we had one person speak 3 times, all right? And I don't know how we can limit it, and if the town board would allow us to limit.
Yeah, well, I share his concern too. I mean, I did notice the same people spoke 3 times, and at one of the other projects, again, I'm not going to name names, people know which one it is, but 30 people spoke 3 times, and even when I said not to repeat, commenters would make it a point to say, well, they're trying to, the board is trying to silence us or to not allow the comment. So I don't know how we police it. I'd love to find a way to mitigate that, and I don't know if a stronger approach is going to do any good. I think it does fan the flames of the public, and I don't want to do that either. So I don't know what the solution is there. It'd be nice to eliminate the repeat comments.
There really is no easy way, and honestly, since I'm new at this and everything else, you know, it's kind of, I don't know how you really want to do this in one night. Yeah, I feel it's kind of, sometimes it's compact and it's, you know, it's just, it's much. And the metering of the meeting sometimes isn't whatever, but as far as trying to keep the public from speaking, we're here for the reason of the public. So you can't really, you know, I get it, I understand that you're here and some people say the same thing, but sometimes I think it's because they feel like even if 4 people said something and they don't say something, it's like, it's really, okay, and it's just brushed aside. And I could understand this because I was on the other side for a lot of years.
It's a fair point.
Yeah.
Very fair point.
You know?
Yeah, that's why as chair, I don't like to cut people off even after having read the, you know, the planning board rules of running public hearings, but, and, you know, I try to emphasize, and so does Anthony when he's chairing the meeting, that we really don't want to hear repeat comments, but sometimes it's a variation of a comment that someone else made with a different take on it, and so it is difficult to, you know, really stop people from saying what they want to say. One thing I think we can do is maybe be a little more careful about continuing public hearings where it's pretty clear that all we're going to get basically are repeat types of comments. And so, yeah, maybe
part of that is some applicants needing to provide certain studies, though, and that sometimes is the sole reason for us to keep it open. And then we keep it open, and the comments are not on that new item.
Yeah.
But we're keeping it open, not necessarily because of public comment.
Like traffic studies is a big one that's come up recently.
So the applicant kind of has to, you know, I see your point, though. I understand. I prefer not to, but, you know, when we have these like DOT letters or, for instance, or some other study that's kind of important to the, you know, the ability of the public to comment.
Then are we doing the public hearings too soon?
Well, I don't think necessarily. I mean, normally we wait a pretty long time before we do public hearings, and we're pretty careful to, for the most part, for not starting the public hearings until we feel we have, you know, pretty much most of the information that's going to be needed. The trick is coordinating the timing of the public hearing with making the seeker determinations, because there really shouldn't be too much separation between the two.
I think that's where part of the problem comes in, though, because I think, and I too, like Bob, was on the other side of the coin. I think the general thought in the population is you can either stop a project or put the skids on something, and that's not what happens here. But people don't understand that. And how do you tell somebody when they have, it's going to be happening in their backyard, and like these people said, they've lived there for 25, 35 years, they're upset, it's their #1 investment, they are rooted here, they don't want to move. We should take it as the fact that they love Fishkill so much, because let's face it, if you really hate something, you can put your house up and move anywhere. You really could. They want to stay. So how do you tell somebody when they're trying to voice their opinion and people feel like, well, if I don't say something, it's going to move forward. Let's band together. The more of us that come forward, it's easier to break a stick than a bundle. And that's why you end up with 40 people saying exactly the same thing, because there's only so much you can say about a project, whether it's going to be noise, or it's going to be lighting, or it's going to be something else that's going to be annoying. I had it happen to me. I learned how to, I learned what the places are and what the different functions are, and I think that's a really big misconception in the community. Absolutely. Absolutely.
But we're trying to solve the problem here.
I understand that, but what are you going to do? Tell somebody they can't speak?
Yeah, one of the most typical comments that you get is, why are you even considering this?
Correct.
You know, right, you know,
Well,
And I get it.
The thing I realized, and I'm very cynical and sardonic about stuff, but it's like, I'm not don't want to develop, I want to develop sensibly, but if you look at the codes and the way everything is set up, it's kind of, I hate to say it, to me, that you really can't stop too many projects unless there's a sentiment of somebody, like, I guess what, you know, I don't know how that works, but that's what the people, you know, I guess maybe don't really understand, because until you're sitting and going behind this, and I'm learning more and more as it goes along, but it's also, like you said, I mean, like I said, I don't know how you really, you know, you're kind of.
That's the
now
misperception.
I see what goes on, so the inner workings of it, so.
Yeah, and I think we've taken.
It is, it's a misperception. I had that misperception.
Yeah.
I know a lot of other people do, but people don't really get involved until it involves them. That's the other issue. So,
And part of it is education, and.
Correct.
I mean, that's why I would love to get to the end of a meeting, sort of like tonight, where we actually have time to discuss these kind of things, and sometimes maybe even use it as an opportunity to educate the public. You know, maybe there's nothing wrong with taking 20 or 30 minutes to explain, well, you know, what is it that the planning board is doing with applications, and what are our limitations, and we do have to follow the state laws and the town code provisions.
Are we locked into how the meeting is run of? Because one of the things I'm concerned about are the long meetings, and we have the public speak for an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours. We can't get the rest of the things done. And I hate to see the people who put in applications say, sorry, 11 o'clock, go home, come back next month. All right? Is there a way we can switch some of the things around? I mean, we cleaned up a lot of stuff real quick.
Well, that's what I was saying, that.
All right, and then have the public come in at 9 o'clock.
The amount of times people have to come if that happens.
Yeah.
Like, we almost, in a way, if you look at our town fire department, is paying a higher note now on building, which is actually taking money out of our own pockets.
yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Correct.
So sometimes, I actually am surprised on some of the projects, how long some of these people have to come back. So it's weird, I'm in two different ways, but some people have to come back here, and I go, God, no wonder it takes so long for these things to get opened up. Like a restaurant where there's some, you know, a small restaurant that wants to move into somewhere or something like that, if you have to come back here 4 or 5 times, 4, 6, 7 months, the supply, like the way it's been lately, the supply chain's up, everything. I'm on that side, so I know that part of it. So I don't know what the,
There's
you know.
never going to be an easy solution.
No, there's not going to be an easy solution, so. But
Because the bottom line is you're never going to make everybody happy all the time. And people want to be heard.
And
they want to be.
I think the main reason we have the public hearings early in the meeting is really for the benefit of the public, so that they can come and voice what they want to say about a particular application, and not necessary to have to sit through the whole meeting like we do. That's our job, that's what we do, but however long the meeting's going to take. But there's no reason to, you know, make people come like late at night for them, like 9 or 9:30 to come to a public hearing.
Yeah.
You know, what some communities do is they will actually reserve a specific meeting, and sometimes that means 2 meetings a month, for public hearings. And that's pretty much the limit of what you do at that meeting.
But if you do that.
Another thing that's really, you know, I think Felix brought up a good point with a project I didn't like from the very start, which was Toll Brothers, that, you know, they had a section that was approved back in 2006, and here it comes now, it's what, 2022, and, you know, things change.
Yeah.
Okay, it was approved, and if it was built fully out in 2006, between whatever that timeline was, it might have changed other things around it. Now they want to come in, and, we had concerns, but we were like kind of a little bit hand-tied, and, kind of sometimes, looked at by, the applicant, like, that we had three heads, because we were asking
Well, maybe then
things.
that's something that should be considered. Maybe an approval should have a limit of, let's say, 5 years.
Well, I don't know how you do
Instead of
that.
20.
That's something that-
But,
Yeah, that's, I know.
you bring up really good points, and, again, it comes down to everybody deserves to
I
have
had
their
no problem
opinion
with them
heard.
developing, I just thought that they could,
And I think that comes
be
down
some
to
of the
a
stuff,
delineate.
but that's just the way it is.
I think that comes down to, I think that comes down to education, right?
Correct.
Of what items are appropriate to be brought to our board.
But
and
people
what
don't
items-
understand that.
Yes, I mean, I think we kind of touched a couple of things. One was whether or not we need to do a second meeting, and then, which I think the answer is for now, no, unless we had a sustained,
I agree with you.
6 to 12 months of meetings that were clearly going well over, and we're kind of just over that 11:30. I don't know, we went to, so for now, I'd say nothing, but I think the other point that's been brought up here is clearly that this board and people, members of the public are interested in, or may be interested in education. And if we could find an opportunity, again, you never know how long these agendas are going to go. It would be nice if we could try to put some other business and maybe try to pick a topic, and try to fit one in, but again, you never know if you're going to get a meeting like this or not.
Yeah, it took like
Can we put a
5, 6,
sign
I don't know
outside?
how many meetings it took to actually be able to do other business again.
Long time this time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can we put a,
If I could make a suggestion, is you could limit the number of public hearings, Chad. If you know something's a big project, don't schedule 3 public hearings.
Yeah, there have been a couple of
but
meetings.
we have some big projects going on right now,
Span them out.
but no one's showing up.
Right.
All right, because it's a big project and it's a warehouse and it's, it's,
Well, there's not a lot of residential around there, so they
That-
get mailed to public hearings.
Correct.
Well, let's,
Unless they're checking the website.
Correct.
yeah, and that's another educational thing, is to
That's
make
right.
sure people understand that there is a website and
I
other
spend a lot of
places.
time on the phone when people call, Tony will tell you, explaining the process.
Correct.
Can we put a sign or on the website of things that the planning board can't do?
Well,
I mean, it's like,
Like an
that would be
How do
a,
you do that?
that would be
I
a
don't know,
very long list.
I'm just, I don't know.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to cut this discussion off for tonight because we won't have a solution, but time may be our friend and solve it for us. And, we'll see how it goes.
But I'd be interested in we email each other. I'd be interested in hearing from the board members via email, what topics they may want to, or be interested in educational opportunities about.
Yeah.
And perhaps we can try to fit them in. I don't see any harm in us communicating
Correct.
and trying to maybe land on something that would be appropriate. And, we can, next time we have some free time, decide maybe one that would be good to do. I think there's clearly some items here that are interesting to folks on the board, so let's open the lines of communication. We have the email, let's do that.
Yeah, that's a great idea. So, one other quick item I wanted to bring up before we do the Healy resolution amendment. The town board has been considering amending Chapter 114, which deals with public hearing notifications and particularly signs. So that came up at a recent application. Size of signs were felt to be too small and not put in places where people could, see them well. So Chapter 114 deals with the size of signs and font size of lettering on the signs, and the town board has indicated, it was earlier this year when they started talking about this, that they were considering amending the Chapter 14 to require larger size signs and larger lettering on the public hearing signs. And it's been this long, actually since the beginning of this year, that I've been able to even ask the board, you know, what's your opinion if the town board decided to do something like that? So that's why I'm bringing it up now, because it's been such a long time since the town board talked about it, and I think the town board decided to table that until the planning board had a chance to talk about it. So here's our chance to talk about it briefly. Does anybody have, you know, first of all, any objections if the town board decided to come up with a
I will tell you,
specific-
when I drive by the signs, I can't read them at all. Only thing I know, and the only thing I really ever see, is the date, and I have nothing else, you know, that's going on. Unless I happen to park right by it, and no one's behind me, I have no idea what's going on. But again, I don't know what size sign you can put up.
Yeah, we don't want to put billboards.
That's, yeah, without having two.
And we can't put LED flashing signs up.
But things that can be.
That's where it gets a little tricky. How big of a sign do you put up? Because then it catches somebody's eye, they slam their brakes on, they want to read it. And then they get, you know, cause an accident. So I'm not really sure.
But I think the color
you know,
of the sign.
I don't know.
The town employs a black and white sign, basically. Perhaps the color would be something that would maybe, you know.
Didn't we used to use orange
signs that are
signs?
yellow?
We never used orange signs.
We didn't, well, okay, I've seen them in different communities.
Yes, but never else, so we're all the same here. The only thing that changes on the signs right now, the sizes are all 24 by 36 for every board. They're all black and white.
I think if you made them 36 by 48, how much clearer is it? Still, you're still driving by it fast. What I found is.
You have to literally,
the
you'd have to
font-
come in here, park your car in the parking lot, go out to, and then look at the sign and read it.
It's how the applicant writes it, you know, it.
Or take a picture
The
and carry it
standard, but I noticed some people write the name of their development really small. Like, it would be nice to.
I mean, I
maybe-
rode by the sign that was on my road for 2 months, I never noticed it.
Yeah.
That's the problem, our project names are long here. They're not short.
Or do we suggest that the applicant, you know, type out, you know, so it's, you know, so at least it's typed and.
Or maybe there's a
to
standard block
a
lettering
font.
that we could use, you know?
But, you know, my handwriting's chicken scratch. I don't know that anybody would be able to read it. Maybe if it was printed out at least. I don't know. We're kind of just throwing ideas out.
I thought we ordered this, I thought the town ordered signs and the people pay
Absolutely
for
not,
it?
it's up to the applicant to order and pay for it.
And they can go anywhere they want to order the sign?
No, they have to go to Dutchess ProPrint, that's the.
Well, that's what I said,
designated sign
but it's a standard,
It's
so.
a standard format with blanks in it for the date and the project name and the time.
Well, that's
of
what I
it.
said, so the only thing we're filling is the date.
And the project
yeah.
Well, to make the printing company add the information on the sign, I don't know.
I don't think they'll be able to do that in a timely fashion the way we schedule
Okay.
public hearings. I've had problems where they haven't been able to get the signs, and I've had to pull some blanks out.
But
I'm
somebody could-
actually surprised we don't have signs here
No.
for them
Well,
to
we don't want them to
purchase
fill-
and then they
No,
fill.
because we don't want to get into that type of selling business of signage, because it gets, if you look at the town boards right now, they keep reusing them, it starts to look pretty bad after a while.
That's
When
interesting.
you reuse the signage.
But I think standardizing the font and maybe changing the color would be two
So
things
the
we
one
could
that's put
do.
out here is paid by the applicant?
No, that's town board.
Okay.
That has nothing to do with applicants unless it's
Application,
something for a
yes,
project.
yes.
Right
Okay.
now, the onus is on the applicant to do all of that through planning and zoning. We don't do any of that.
You know, we also, being in real estate, I know we just couldn't put up any sign we wanted. I mean, and I go back that, with the politicians, all right? They said you can't put up a real estate sign and a for sale sign in the house, but you can put up, you know.
Yeah, they're a little exempt from political
But,
signs.
yeah, and I've dealt with that over years, you know, way back. So now they let us at least put up one sign on a property. But no one says we're allowed to put up two signs on a property, all right? So again, you know, and the yard signs and all that other stuff. So there's no real easy answer.
Dominic, have there been any good example, John even, have there been any good examples that have worked maybe better in other municipalities that you've seen?
The town of Fishkill is the only municipality that I represent that requires signage.
Require signs for a public hearing?
There's an issue right
The
there.
same for you, John? Is the-
All the other municipalities I've dealt with, it's pretty much the same thing where they require signs.
So it's a similar.
I have seen I'm trying to think of what town it was, but I have seen signs put up on like 4x4 timber posts, and it seems a little overkill to me.
It's Fishkill, and they do something, if it's a big
Yeah,
one,
it
like
might
the town
be
board,
East
it's
Fishkill.
huge.
Yeah.
It's like the size of that television.
Yeah. No, I was just
Wow.
curious, and it sounds like other municipalities are dealing with the same thing.
And also, when you get to a huge sign like that size, you're looking at stability issues, possibly even safety issues of the sign blowing away in the wind and hitting a car or something like that.
I mean, we get pretty specific in ours where we say, you know, it's gotta be 24 by 36, it's gotta be corrugated plastic. I mean, they deal with the sign maker for that. It's gotta be double-sided, you know.
Yeah.
Can
I
we go
think-
to Dutchess Pro and ask them what they would suggest? I could do that tomorrow.
We could be,
Yeah.
anyone,
I just
we all go.
I think it's gonna be up to the town board.
Yeah.
I know, but come back to,
really
but
couldn't
come
come to
back
any
to say,
Yeah.
this is the suggested way to do it.
I'll go ahead,
One
Felix, you
last
go
thing.
first. You go first.
Just, I know from putting up many signs over the years for different things, it's difficult to see these signs because there's too much information on it.
Yep.
If, you know, and I always just go back to political signs, which are the easiest ones? They have one name, one thing. If you're trying to put too many things on a sign, nobody can
And we
read
do
it,
have a lot.
you know?
Yeah.
And so, no, I don't think there's an easy, you know, answer to this, because they're putting up a bunch of stuff, you're driving by, you can't read it. It just, you know, yeah, it's not
And-
gonna happen.
In my mind, the main issue with the signs was not so much the size of the sign or the lettering, as much as it was the location of where they could be put.
Which is up to this board.
Yeah, but it's not up to this board as to putting a sign on a location or property that is not controlled by the applicant.
Right, yes.
And that I think was the main issue with this recent
Right,
case of
right.
signs where the public had a problem with the way the signs were put up.
Yeah.
And it
It
won't
doesn't
be the,
have to
it won't be
be,
the
doesn't
last
have to be somewhat closest to the edge of wherever their property is, so the public can access it?
Well, it also can't go into right-of-ways and other people's properties.
Yeah, no, I'm saying, but it has to be on their property, but it's closest to where public can have access. Otherwise, what's the use having a sign?
We had a few projects, like the
Right.
cell phone tower had the
I
issue
was just gonna
too.
say that, we had that problem with the cell tower.
It's not, you know, and it won't be the last.
No, it will not.
Well, we
Depending
had
on the
to-
project, it's not going to be that.
So let's move on.
Yes.
It sounds to me like there isn't a real consensus on the need for changing the size of the signs. As Dominic mentioned, a lot of places don't even require signs, and there are other ways of finding out about public hearings. And maybe we should, again, as an educational process, tell people to look on the website, because that's where you're going to find the real information about public hearings that are coming up or being continued. And so, you know, we'll keep trying for that.
Yeah, the supervisor sends out a lot of updates, you know, email updates. Maybe at the bottom, it could say these are things that are going on in town and for public comment.
Well,
And
actually, you know, if I could add in, people can sign up for alerts on specific pages of the website, so that would be the perfect example.
yeah, or maybe that's what he
You know,
does,
minutes,
suggests to
public
people.
hearings,
yeah.
they can sign up in the minute something has changed, they get that, you know.
I mean, we can make it,
Yeah, but but with what we're doing, people don't know about it until they see a sign.
yeah.
And that's,
So, and I don't
That's
care.
actually not true, because when public hearings get put out on the website.
you
the
too?
sign is
I'm getting a
posted.
lot from the county.
Well, I understand, but people are not looking at the website unless it's their backyard.
and that's exactly the point. It has to be, people have to become a little more proactive too. I include myself in that. I did not know what was going on in my own backyard till I walked into a town board meeting and saw a picture, and I went, wait a minute, that looks like my house. That's how I found out. Meanwhile, I was driving by the sign and never even noticed it. So that's the truth. And Debbie can attest, because I said, oh my God, what do? I didn't know. And so you have to kind of take a little bit of responsibility and try to, we have to educate.
I mean, we could add announcements at the beginning of the meeting, a quick, you know, visit the website. I mean, even then, but if you're not watching the meeting, you're not going to get
Yeah.
that message. So, I know
Yeah, it's hard.
I know the municipal,
It's just common. That's
the
what it
municipal
is.
network has the information on the website, I believe. So, I mean,
Our website has more than a lot
Yeah.
of other municipalities, to be honest with you.
Yep.
Okay.
but I think if there are ideas, they should be brought to the
So-
town board's attention.
So, we really need to get to this
Yes.
Healy resolution amendment.
All right.
So Jody, if you want to,
Do I'm not sure what I do. Do I go outside and wait?
well, no, I think if you feel like going home, we're not going to have any other business after.
So
we
I
go
can just
home.
go home
So
now?
just go
We
home.
won't talk about anything else
Thank you.
after this.
Don't talk bad about me
No.
while I'm gone. No,
Okay.
okay.
No, we're gonna
Yeah,
talk-
try not to, Debbie, try not to. Okay, everyone, good night.
Good night, thank you. Thanks, Jody. Okay, so,
I don't know, sometimes I smell the weirdest shit. Sorry.
Okay, so
I'll edit that out, Rob.
does everyone kind of understand what this is about?
Yes.
There's been a lot of discussions and action going on in terms of getting me as chair of the planning board to sign the site development plan for the Healy project. And, one of the main obstacles of that, and there, Debbie goes through, this is another educational thing we'll have to discuss at maybe a whole meeting
I'd be fine
for
with
that.
that, that would be great, actually.
But applicants don't always fully understand what the conditions in the resolutions really mean, and the timing of when they have to fulfill those conditions in order to get the site plan approved. So the one real stumbling block in my mind for the Healy resolution signing was this outside approval required, which was the state DOT work permit for work in the Route 52 right-of-way. And when you look at the conditions, so what I did was I took, the wording of the existing conditions, and there are two parts of it. First is 1A, which was the actual condition requiring the obtaining of the work permit prior to getting the signature of the plans. And the second part was the paragraph on page 8, which indicates those conditions that need to be fulfilled and proof of fulfillment prior to the signing of the plans. And so that very clearly stated conditions 1 through 12, and 1 included that 1A highway work permit. So I had no authority to sign that document, to sign the site plans, until that was fulfilled. And that's why I'm bringing this to the board, to see if the board will consider amending the resolution. So I came up with a suggested wording to do that, and a way. So this would be, in effect, an amendment of that portion of the resolution that would need to be amended, rather than rewriting the whole resolution. I just focused on the parts that needed amendment. And so the red lettering, and I formatted this so that it could actually be signed as if it were an amended resolution, just dealing with the parts of the resolution that would be amended. So after we look at this, I'll ask Dominic what you think about, doing it this way. But basically, what I thought was important in the amendment was to refer to the New York State DOT letter from April 20th of 2022, which was in effect a conceptual approval, basically saying that no work should be, this is DOT's wording really, as stated in the DOT letter, no work shall be completed in the NISDOT right-of-way until NISDOT's review of the detailed design plans for implementation of the two-way left turn lane. That's the main work item in the right-of-way. And associated improvements in the right-of-way has been completed and a highway work permit is issued. So that would be prior to this issuance of any certificate of occupancy or certificate of completion, that work would have to be done. But it would not hold up the signing of the resolution further based on this particular item. There may still be other things that Debbie will need to sign off on. Well, she doesn't sign off on it, but she's
I kind of put it all together.
the administrative putting it together from sign-offs from other places like John and Dominic. So I think this wording would solve the problem in regard to the work permit requirement prior to signing of the plans, and, make the condition more to speak to what seems to actually happen with DOT reviewing these things. And so it would also, on page 8, in that first paragraph, change the lettering of the conditions that have to be fulfilled from, instead of 1, it would be 1B through 12.
Is this something that we'll also have to do with the fire department too? Because of DOT?
No, we worded it differently
put
in anticipation of this, so it was worded to indicate that conceptual approval.
Right.
And if I may just expand a little bit on what the chairman was saying, is the way that DOT approval works is that it actually comes in stages. So the plans, like the plans that you saw, the site plans which show the turning lanes and other improvements that are going to be made within the DOT right-of-way are sent to DOT. They typically go through several rounds of revisions, and then the DOT will issue, essentially it is a letter that says that the concept of it is approved. But it's not a permit. A highway work permit still has to be issued, but the difficulty is that the highway work permit is actually not issued to the applicant. The highway work permit is issued to the company that's actually doing the work out in the roadway. And that step here is not going to occur until, that construction is undertaken. So, and they can't do the construction without having all the other pieces in place as well. So they're caught in a bind. And the real issue, if I may, is on page 8, because it's not the fact that a highway work permit's required. It is required, but it's whether it was required prior to signing the plan.
Right.
So this will solve the problem?
Yes, it would.
Suggesting as an amendment,
Yes, it would.
and therefore, we have no more discussion except to approve this.
Yeah, that's correct, and they have satisfied all other conditions of their approval.
I so move.
Okay, so we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Bob. Any further discussion?
Not on this, no.
All right. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? So that passes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 0. Okay, very good. And we're actually finishing at, I'll say 11 o'clock. So, so the next meeting is Thursday, October 13th. Deadline for submissions is Wednesday, September 28th at 2:30 p.m. Anything else that anyone needs to bring up?
I would just like to make a motion to adjourn.
All right. I think that was a motion by Fred, right?
It was.
Is there a second for adjournment?
Felix wants to?
That was Felix. Okay, we're out of here. Thank you, everybody.
What? I didn't get a copy.
Thank you.